Welcome. I am your host, Manpreet, aka MMA Lock of the Night, and your boy on social media at MMA LOTN. Joined as always by my Canadian brethren. We got my guy Cody Saftic. You guys can follow him at CJ Saftic on Twitter. And we are here propping you up for UFC Vegas 54, headlined by a light heavyweight fight between former title holder Jan Blachowicz and rising star Alexander Rakic. We even have a light heavyweight scrap in the co-main event as well, with Iwan Cutelaba taking on Ryan Spann. So big boys taking center stage here in the co-main and main event. Cody, what's your level of enthusiasm for this card? You psyched for it or what?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we're MMA fans. We're going to watch Bellator. We watch Invicta FC on a Wednesday. We'll watch PFL. We'll watch absolutely anything. So yeah, it's premier mixed martial arts. It's UFC guys. You know, you find the spots. If you don't love the matchups, if you're, last week there was 15 fights. Like, you don't have to overextend yourself, but you always find those spots you like. So 2 weeks ago, we were fortunate enough, well, for the props anyways, I had Krzysztof Jotko plus 180 and then Marlon Vera plus 275. Last week, man, I really thought Clayton Abreu won that fight, but all the same, he doesn't.
Clayton Rodriguez. Let's not mix up those two.
Yeah.
Abreu, you were just shitting on him a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, he's terrible too, eh? Okay, yeah, sorry, Rodriguez. I thought he had edged it out, but all the same, missed on the plus 160. Ivanov by submission. Don't know what I was thinking. Looks like Rogerio de Lima's gas tank held up way better. But we did hit the Randy Brown by decision at plus 325. So the last 2 weeks have been low-key profitable, way better 2 weeks ago. And even last week, I feel like Rodriguez could have got the nod. It would have been much better. But again, you can find these nice little plus money tags on some of the fights, make it a lot more interesting for yourself. And of course, I always end up my end of the week before I make my picks for the lock it in. I like to talk to my boy, lock of the night, see where his head's at, see what he's thinking. Go over a couple opinions here and there, share some thoughts, argue a little bit maybe, and then seal things up. So happy to be here as always.
Hell yeah. And I went 2 of 3 on my three best prop bets last week as well. I went all violence pretty much for 3 of the main card fights. OSPN Shogun Hua, talk about a stinker. Talk about a guy going out there and saying he wants to top a 34-second KO performance. Not like that, OSP. Not like that. But Michael Chandler delivers on a beautiful head kick knockout or front kick knockout to cash the fight. Doesn't go to decision there. And then Charles Oliveira, Justin Gaethje, my lock of the night play there. That's now 16 out of 17 fights for Charles Oliveira, where he has cashed the under 2.5. The guy is an absolute berserker, and once he's able to get your back, man, it's pretty much it's all done, right? It's very difficult to get out of that back position with Charles Oliveira, and Justin Gaethje found out the hard way this past weekend. So let's try to keep it rolling here, Cody, with some good props for the folks here. Right off the top, though, I do want to give a quick shout out to the All-Star, obviously, for bringing us on their platform again and, keeping us here and showing that we provide a nice little bump for them on their channel, and not to mention all the viewers and, fans that watch it afterwards. You guys absolutely kill it with the comments, the likes, the support. We truly appreciate it. But obviously, big shout out to the All-Star. Also, shout out to BetOnline. Make sure you guys go check them out. Link is in the description below. They have a 50% welcome bonus up to $1,000. So make sure you guys take full advantage of that, because they are probably one of the best MMA books in terms of early lines, props, and even regional MMA betting. So if you want to bet on Invicta, you could have done that if you had BetOnline. So make sure you guys go check them out. Link is in the description below. And then obviously shout out to Cloudbet as well. We got a bunch of fun props that we got lined up for this card, and we'll get to them as we slowly crack away at this card. So Cody, let's not waste any more time. Let's get into this goddamn thing. First off, we got a middleweight scrap between Nick Maximov going up against Andre Petroski. In terms of odds, you're talking about plus 310 on Petroski, minus 375 for the last time out. Mr. Nick Maximov was actually in the co-main event. Now they're, after that 11 takedown performance with, I believe 12 minutes of control time as well that he got against Hadley Soriano. The UFC's like, you know what? We're good. We don't need your style on the main card. We don't need your style in the co-main event. You should kick off the card. That's probably where you're better off suited. And that's exactly what's happening here. We got 2 grapple-heavy guys who are looking to take their opponents to the ground and initiate their, high-level jiu-jitsu. Let's give them some props. They're pretty good when they're able to get their opponents to the ground. Petroski, to me, seems like the guy that uses his strength a little bit more to kind of implement his jiu-jitsu game, compared to the opposite side with Maximov, where he seems a little bit more of the finesse type, right? Like, he is a step ahead of his opponents at times. He does a good job in terms of flowing on top of his opponents, transitioning from one position to another, has decent control as well, as we obviously saw in his last fight against Hadley Soriano. And, given the history of both guys, I feel like Maximov might be the more trustworthy guy the deeper a fight goes. Now, wait, Cody, I get it. Petroski got two back-to-back third-round finishes in his last two fights, but against very abysmal competition. Michael Gilmore and Yao Zhonghu, who hadn't fought in 3, 4, maybe even 5 years at that point in time, really trying out a new weight class by taking Petroski on at middleweight there. So I think he's going to face way more resistance here against Maximov. I think we'll see Maximov maybe drop the first round, so possibly a live betting opportunity to get a much better line on Maximov going on into round 2. But after that, I think he's going to start to take over, really grind on Petroski, get that top position, and grind him out over 15 minutes here. I think this fight more than likely goes the full 15 minutes. Fight goes to decision, currently sits at minus 135. Over 2.5 is minus 160. If I were to make a bet at all in this fight, that is likely the way that I'm going to go. But in terms of a specific fighter and method of victory, I'm going to go Maximov by decision at plus 120. Sign me up for that. What about you, Cody? What are you liking here?
Yeah, I'm basically agreeing with a lot of the same points. I think that Petroski is talented, but he's just got so much muscle on him. He doesn't know how to conserve. I mean, everything he does is full horsepower, and as a result, he gasses himself out. He gets super sluggish, and then someone is eventually going to take advantage of him. I remember when he fought our boy from Ontario, Aaron Jeffrey, I was like, what is Aaron signing up for? Like, this guy's undefeated as a pro, 7-1 as an amateur, ripped, wrestled collegiately, like, going to be a tough matchup. But he tired pretty bad after the first round. And then Aaron's able to TKO him. So he ends up on the Ultimate Fighter. This guy's probably got a shot, suffered his first pro loss, probably went back to the drawing board, made some corrections. And then that fight with Brian Battle, well, it's the same thing. Like, he comes out hot, he completely gasses out after the first, and Brian Battle's able to submit him. So you're seeing the pattern there. Now, as you mentioned, those back-to-back third-round finishes, Yao Zhongwu, again, you already mentioned it, very, very, very limited, very limited. Michael Gilmore, though, that one's the interesting one to me. So Michael Gilmore's losses are as follows: Ramiz Brahimaj, first round submission; Gilbert Urbina, first round submission; Randy Patino, first round submission; Willie Black, first round submission; Ricky Miller, that was a second round submission. The fact that Petroski needed so much time, he got him in a pile of submission attempts, couldn't stick any. The Yao Zhongwu fight, how many submission attempts did he have? Like 6? He just couldn't get nothing to stick. It was ridiculous, right? So I don't know how good his grappling is. He's big, he's strong, he can wrestle. He gets guys down against limited competition. He has his way against them, but I don't like him too much. And then we saw him in that Fury FC grappling match against Phil Hawes. Like, neither guy engages each other, right? I guess you would give Petroski 2 advantage points for like attempting a couple takedowns. Hawes would fall over the ground, engage him in the guard for a little bit, he'd stand back up. It's a terrible grappling match, but I think you see his limitations. Now, the thing with Maximov is, his name ends with an OV, but he ain't no Russian fighter. He's an American boy, but he fights that Russian grind. He just gets on you and grinds. Again, here's another kid that wrestled collegiately. He's a guy that's got a BJJ black belt. And whereas his cardio is not good either, it's because of the sheer amount of exertion he puts into everything. Like, he just goes hard the entire time. So he's going to gas out. His ground and pound's lackluster. He doesn't switch a whole lot of positions. He's got a good back take on him. Grappling is good. I wouldn't say great. It's the fact that he's 24 years old, right? So people get harp on him because of the Cody Brunridge fight. Well, actually, first of all, they harp on him because that Oscar Cota Contender Series fight, where he fought at heavyweight, by the way, but it wasn't a great fight. Then the Cody Brunridge fight, slightly better, but people thought Brunridge may have won. Then that Puena Soriano fight, again, split decision, but he takes him down 11 times. And Soriano wrestled collegiately, trains full-time out of Las Vegas, managed by Abdelaziz, one of his inside guys. The guy was talented. He was the favorite in that spot. But Maximov just grinds on you. So I think this matchup with Petroski is going to be the exact same thing. If you try to make it a wrestling match, both guys know how to wrestle. Petroski's probably even slightly better wrestler. He's going to get exhausted. Once he gets exhausted, because as you know, wrestling is probably the most tiring part of the game, he's going to start making mistakes. He's going to slip up, and that's when Maximov should be able to capitalize. I was tempted to go with the Maximov inside the distance just because, I think if Petroski gets tired, he should be able to take his back, maybe sink up a rear naked choke. But there's no urgency in his game. Like, he's not trying to open you up and soften you up at ground and pound. He's not trying to really put a beating on you as much as he just wants to fight to the ground. If you get back up, he'll peel you back down. He's in on takedowns the entire time. He fights not a very fan-pleasing style, but in terms of someone you can bet on, and I don't know, just you get a good feeling that at least he's going to fight what a winning style is considered. I would think Maximov. Now, I know people are probably sitting at home being like, dude, he's way too big of a favorite. He's not that good. Watch his 2 UFC fights, not that good. I concur with all those points. But what I draw it back to is that he's 24 years old. He's only going to be getting better and better. His style, again, doesn't look like much. But they call him Jake Shields 2.0 for a reason. He's going to fight one of those dull bog-type fights that wins. It's effective. And I think that's what he does here. So I got Maximov. Maximov, I ended up going with decision, of course, because I don't think he's a finisher quite yet. And for that reason, plus 115 on that Maximov by decision. You could also take the fight to just go to decision. If you thought Petroski might stuff the takedowns, end up on top, close split decision, maybe they decided for Petroski. I don't think Petroski finishes Maximov. Don't think he knocks him out. Don't think he submits him. So Petroski's going to win decision. If Maximov's going to win, I'm pretty sure decision. Again, you could see a late submission if he was tired or something, but plus 115, I don't mind that whatsoever. So that's what I'm going with.
Mr. Always Profit knows the weight of my heart, saying Maximov round 3, possibly worth the sprinkle. I agree with you, Cody, though. I do think he likely just grinds him out here. But if Petroski does start sucking wind very bad, as we've seen him in the past, I'm not counting it out. Plus 1,000 for a round 3 finish for Maximov. I'm right there with you as well. And also another thing that Mr. Always Profit brings up here, Soriano is an underrated fighter. This is a big step down for Nick Maximov. Again, kind of questionable, right? You take him from the co-main event slot, drop him all the way down to the curtain jerker of the prelims, and put him up against a step down, essentially, right? I get it. Petroski's on a 2-fight winning streak inside the UFC, but going from Soriano, who's already an established middleweight, all the way down to a guy who's only going to have his 3rd UFC fight here, a little bit puzzling to me. They're probably not a big fan of his style, considering it's kind of boring, let's be honest, but he gets the job done.
It's boring. It's boring, and they're currently in a contract dispute with Nate Diaz. So, I'm sure they're just going to stick it to the kid, put him on the first fight of the card. But at the same time, how many guys would be like, I'll fight Nick Maximov? Because he is boring. This does nothing for you. Fighting him is not going to win you no $50,000 fight of the night bonus, and chances are he just sucks the life out of you the entire time. And what can you do about it, right? And that Canadian fighter, Zach Powell?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, same shit, right? He's actually super talented, but he just does nothing. He just leans up against guys, takes them down if he can, if not, holds them up against the cage. And whereas he's 6-1 and looks to have a promising future, nobody wants to book him, and it's hard getting guys to fight him because it's like, I really get nothing out of this. You get more out of guys like, oh, he's going to stand and bang. You know what? I'd like to entertain the crowd. I'll have some friends and family in attendance. I'll have a fight. I don't want to get pushed up against the cage and taken down repeatedly. And the Brunridge fight was not good whatsoever. The Soriano fight might have been worse. Right? He got more takedowns, but it would be hard to find someone to fight. Now, I could think Petroski would say, well, I'm 2-0 in the UFC. They've given me really soft guys, so I need to take a step up. I know how to wrestle. He's not going to take me down. I know how to grapple. He's not going to submit me, and he absolutely cannot strike. So I'm just going to sprawl and brawl his ass. He would accept it. But the placement, going from a co-main event to the first fight on the card, the first fight on a card of a fight night that's flying under the radar that only has 11 fights on it. You know what? I think they're trying to stick it to him or send him a message.
I like it. And shout out to Kyle Davis here, letting me know that there's people actually over on my channel. When I was setting up the stream, I did actually mess it up. I initially put it on my channel. I switched it over to the All-Star. I did go over to my channel now and just let everybody know in that live chat to hop on over here. Apologies for my stupidity from earlier today setting this up. All right, let's get this show back on the tracks here. We got Carlos Candelario going up against Tatsuro Taira. This was a fight obviously scheduled a couple weeks ago here, but we're getting pretty much the same odds. Minus 230 on Taira, plus 195 on Candelario. And the reason that it got pulled out, I believe on fight day, Candelario came down with some sort of stomach bug, if I'm not mistaken, and that was causing him to vomit. And, he just wasn't in a good shape, hence why they canceled the fight. They waited, they rumored that the fight was going to get pushed to this upcoming card, but they took a couple of days to make sure that Candelario was going to be set and ready to go. And, based on some solid authority that I'm in connection with here, Candelario is 100% ready to go, back to being healthy, ready to put on a performance here. So I'm not going to take too much from the fact that this fight was canceled 2 weeks ago. I'm going to assume that it's just ready to go. Both guys are fully prepared and healthy and ready to go on the spot. Taira, Cody, we talked about this the other week with Taira. Whenever you have these foreign fighters come over from overseas, whether it's Japan, whether it's, Georgia or something like that, and they come over with an undisputed record, a lot of people, they're like, oh, maybe this guy's the shit. We don't pay too much attention on that side of the world. But when you have an undefeated fighter with, a plethora of finishes on the record coming to the UFC, we're excited. We're just like, oh, maybe there's a new hot prospect coming here. Not to mention, he's a champion on that side of the world as well, right? When you see that shiny belt on him, the picture that they post of this guy coming to the UFC, they're like, oh, this guy's probably the shit. I still have question marks though, right? He has a great back take. His jiu-jitsu game looks good. His level of competition is a little bit sketchy. Whereas Candelario, on the other hand, he's been fighting on the Northeast territory side of things here in North America, especially in the US. I believe it was CES that he was fighting for in the New England area. A solid fighter, man. Good striking, good ground and pound, great submission defense, as we saw in the Contender Series, not once but twice. In the second fight he had against Victor Altamirano, comes up short there, but if I'm not mistaken, becomes the first ever fighter that Dana White actually signs coming off of a loss on the Contender Series, because they believe that, one, he won the fight, and two, that he has what it takes to cut it inside the UFC. And I absolutely agree. I believe that his regional circuit was just as tough, if not tougher, than what Taira had to deal with on the regional scene coming up on that side of the world. I do like Candelario here as the dog. He's more than likely going to be my dog of the night play here around that plus 200 mark. I think he survives early against Taira's jiu-jitsu, and then he really starts to put it on him later in this fight. I don't think Taira has really faced much adversity, at least not as much adversity as he's going to be facing here against Carlos Candelario. So I'm going to go with Candelario. The only concern I have in terms of picking a prop for this fight is, like, how does Taira react once he starts facing adversity? Is he just going to shell up and look for a way out? Or is he going to just try to keep fighting and try to stay in the game, maybe find a momentum swing later in this fight as well? I'd rather just take the money line at plus 200. Let's not get too greedy. But if you want to put an actual method of victory here, I'll go with Candelario by decision. I think he'll do a good enough job in terms of staying out of submissions and just grinding from on top the way that he does. Plus 350 is where his decision prop is. And again, that's not too far off from plus 200, where you're covering more bases here with the Candelario W. So again, this is a prop show. We'll go Candelario by decision, like I said, plus 350. Even the fight goes to decision at plus 100. I don't mind that either. I think it will be very hard pressed for either guy to find a submission in this spot. I'm going Candelario. What about yourself, Cody? I can't recall what you picked a couple weeks ago. And, if you do remember what you picked, are you sticking with it or are you changing it this time?
Yeah, so a couple weeks ago, I went with Candelario. We agreed with all the same points. Here's a guy that actually does have some some experience. He's fought a Contender Series a couple of times. The first time he wins, he fights a nasty BJJ black belt, gets out of all types of submission attempts, shows that he's got good submission grappling, especially submission defense. And then his last time against Victor Altamirano, I mean, you and I both agree that we thought he won the fight, right? Loses a close split. Dana White signs him coming off a loss, which is the first time in show's history, I think the only time in show's history that he's done that. They might give these guys a shot down the road, but you know what I mean? The night of, give them a contract, right? So had he won that Victor Altamirano fight, which we both thought he should have, this kid's undefeated too, right? What's there not to like about him? But I'm a coward, man. I'm a coward, and I think I dropped the other way and went with Tatsuro Taira. Here's my reasoning on this one. So we take Candelario because he's a big underdog 2 weeks ago. Okay, looks good. Yes, this kid, he's just inexperienced in the ways of the world. He's still 22 years old. He hasn't really fought anybody. He's coming over from Japan. This is his first time competing in North America. First time competing outside Japan, for that matter. There's a lot of stuff that you maybe don't like about him. But he gets ready for this Candelario fight, right? So they sign him. They put it on the dotted line. He comes to Las Vegas for like 2 weeks, shows up for the fight. It falls through, right? It falls through because Candelario has the virus, the bug virus, right? So this fight gets rebooked. Why is Candelario less? There's less value on him this time. Because last time it was like minus 350 or something for the Japanese prospect. Now you look at this one and it's like, oh.
Was it that wide?
Maybe not 350, but can you look at what it was listed last time?
I believe last Paul time and I argued this a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be. So, but anyways, you're getting a slightly less value on it this time around, right? Where Candelario was the one that pulled out. I'm not sure what made people. Paul speculates it's because there was a lot of money coming on Candelario last time. So this time when they reopened it, they were like, we're not going to offer people those big plus money tags again, and kind of dropped it down a little bit. But if anything, it favors this Japanese kid. He had never fought outside of Japan. Okay, so now he's come to North America. He got 2 weeks in Las Vegas. He's come over here. He's got himself a little acclimatized, right? Now you're going to eat the food. Now you're going to experience different things. Now he's got to go and check into the hotel. Now he's got to get ready to make weight. Now you got to spend that whole week thinking about your debut and this opponent. Then it gets canceled. You still attend the event. It's all good experience for a young kid. Now he spent the last 2 weeks still in Las Vegas. Didn't go home. It's not like a month in Las Vegas is going to do anything for his game. I just think it'll do something for his comfortability, right? And when you look at him fight, he just has a nasty way of taking the back. Once he takes the back, he sinks in a body triangle. And there's just nowhere to go in body triangles. It doesn't matter how good of a grappler you are. You see it all the time in MMA. That body triangle gets slapped on. You're not going anywhere. Aljamain Sterling won a world title with the body triangle. Happens all the time. You just backpack a guy. So I almost feel like Candelario does leave a lot of openings in the exchanges. This kid's just going to try to backpack him and then just kill time away at the clock. It's very difficult to win a round when someone's on your back. And with Candelario, I don't think he's got the greatest cardio to begin with. It did look like he fatigued in the Altamirano fight late. Now he's taking this fight. You make weight. Your body peaks physically. You got a stomach bug, right? He had taken 4 years off after the first Contender Series fight, came back at 135, and then had that one at 125. So is the weight cut tough for him? The stomach bug, as you mentioned, he's completely clear of that. But was he able to train the last 2 weeks? Has he been sitting around? Is his body kind of going dull on him, or is it peaking physically? I don't know. But I got a nasty suspicion watching the tape over and over and over again that Taira's going to have the opportunity to take the back. He's slick. He's smooth. He probably will. And he probably just banks off 2 of these rounds. So you're going Candelario by decision. I'm going the other way. I got Taira by decision at plus 225. Again, I think Candelario is tough enough that he won't get submitted, but I think he's just going to be giving up the positional exchanges, and for the most part, having Taira just out-grapple him ever so slightly. So count me the other way. I don't have a ton of confidence on it. It's not like Taira's someone I want on parlays or like deep into my spending, but I think the kid's going to go out there and pull it off.
At least one thing we agree upon is the fact that this will likely go 15 minutes and the fight goes to decision. Currently sits at plus 100. So decent spot there if anybody wants to take us up on that take. Go ahead.
Even if you like that juice, even if you like juice parlays, the over 1.5 minus 185, that's not bad at all. I mean, it's less than 2-1. And again, Candelario's never been finished in his career. Taira's undefeated. He's never been finished in his career. It kind of feels like it's not grappler versus grappler, but I've seen Candelario get out of a ton of bad positions before. All he's got to do is survive 7.5 minutes. So I think it goes over 1.5. As I say that, I try to fade that Makayev kid because it's like, what do you really know about him? Right? What do you really know about him? Turns out he's a badass. And he knocks Durden out with a flying knee like instantaneously. So I wouldn't rule out that Taira is some great prospect. He goes and he puts it on. But even if he's not and he's a little bit fraudulent, I think Candelario still just pounds on him for the over 1.5. Still likely goes to decision, but at minus 185, I think that's a good looking prop piece.
I like it. All right, let's move on to this next fight here. We got a women's strawweight fight. We got Virna Jandiroba going up against Angela Hill, making her 20th UFC walk to the octagon. In terms of odds, minus 185 on the Brazilian jiu-jitsu specialist Virna Jandiroba, and plus 160 the return on Angela Hill. I think this is a fight for Jandiroba to go out there and do what she does, man. She's not a great striker, and that's something that she'll never really get to overcome. Angela Hill will likely have her beat in that situation, but I do think that we'll see Jandiroba close distance well enough here, drag this fight to the ground, and really let her jiu-jitsu game go. It might only take one submission. Like, I do think that she's maybe second, if not third best jiu-jitsu player, pure jiu-jitsu player in this division, outside of, maybe Mackenzie Dern. Normally, her UFC stats actually has her at a 39% takedown accuracy rate. But if you take away the last fight against Amanda Ribas, where she went 1 of 8, you're looking closer at 52 to 53% takedown efficiency for Jandiroba. On the flip side, for Angela Hill, you're looking at a 78% takedown defense rate, but she's been taken down at least once in her last 5 out of 6 fights. It's, again, I think it could only take one, right? Angela Hill, she is getting better with her submission defense and all that, but a good chunk of her losses have come via submission, and now you're going up against one of the best jiu-jitsu players in your division. I just don't think it's going to work out that well. Mixing the fact that Angela Hill's not really a heavy hitter, I don't think that Virna will get stuck at range trying to get her to the ground. I think she'll be able to push her up against the cage, drag this to the ground, and then either control her or eventually find a submission in this spot. I'm leaning more so the latter here with her finding the submission. Last thing I'll say about this, I know the hype on Angela Hill is they're riding a little bit of a wave right now, considering that last performance against Amanda Lemos. And most people, including myself, thought she deserved to win that fight. But I think people are still a little bit high on her from that performance. But I just don't think that that has any bearing on how this fight is going to go specifically, right? Nemos, way more of a striker, doesn't really utilize her grappling as much, and I think that's going to be that's a difference maker, right? Jandiroba will be able to corral Angela Hill, drag her to the ground, and just control her or find that find that submission. Submission prop for Jandiroba is currently sitting at plus 275. Sign me up for that. I do think she finds a submission here, probably in the first or second round, takes it home, gets back on the winning track. What are you saying for this matchup?
Yeah, entirely possible it plays out like that. Entirely possible she tires herself out after the first round of hunting for submissions, hunting for takedowns, and then Angela Hill just works her way back into it. Like, I don't think this one's as clear cut as she gets taken down, she gets submitted, because quite frankly, when you deal with Angela Hill, you're probably going the 15 minutes. You're probably going to decision. That last fight with Lemos, I thought she won that one too. Fight before that, it's a decision. Tisha Torres, decision. Ashley Yoder, decision to Michelle Watterson. She should have won that one. Decision. Claudia Gadelia. She should have won that one. Decision. Loma Lukabume. It's a whole lot of decisions. So when you think about, well, her grappling's always been a deficiency in her game. Absolutely, it has been. But she hasn't been submitted in 3 years. Yeah, it was Ronda Marcos in the first round. Not a great look. Not a great look. God damn, one's got to think, well, Claudia Gadelia was a former world champion BJJ black belt. Michelle Watterson's a BJJ black belt. Ashley Yoder's a BJJ black belt. Maybe there's a possibility that she has shored up that part of her game where, again, hasn't been submitted in 3 years. If she doesn't get submitted, if she can defend a couple of submission attempts here and there, yeah, it would definitely help her out. Because the thing with Virna Jandiroba is that she's slow, she's plodding, and she probably does get the takedown in the first round, but she just doesn't have the gas tank for my liking. Now, you talk about her grappling, you mentioned maybe, third best in the division. She is a tremendous grappler. But keep in mind, her submission wins are Mallory Martin and Felice Herrig. So, hasn't submitted anybody of note. The Kanako Murata fight, really hard takeaway because Murata breaks her arm like right away. So, I don't know. Just I'm not fully sold on Virna. I like what she brings to the table in terms of you want to match. You always want to bet the better grappler in these women's MMA spots. I get it. And Virna is the better grappler. But when you watch her fight, she doesn't take down or she doesn't set up her takedowns particularly well. Her knees all taped up. She's not particularly all that athletic. She is 33 years old, so it's not like she's a young prospect that's getting better and better. And again, I mean, she does get the takedown and she doesn't get that first round submission. The second and the third, she starts to fatigue. Her striking's not all that good. Her footwork's not all that good. I could see a world where Angela Hill just matadors her, outpoints her, puts up better volume, and squeaks this thing out. I mean, Hill's been in a lot of close fights. She typically doesn't win the splits, but it just matters who the judges are. Who are the three people sitting there? We get screwed on bad decisions all the time, but Virna Jandiroba is like a minus 175 favorite. If this thing ends up being a decision, it ends up being a greasy decision, yeah, I want the plus money ticket on Angela Hill if that's the case. So I've been getting burnt up on women's MMA lately anyways. What else is new? But I would go the other side here. I got Hill, and then specifically Hill by decision at plus 210 because she can't bust a grape, right? So I don't know that she's going to go out there and knock out Virna Jandiroba.
I do want to shout out my guy Clint, who brought it up to me the other day, saying that Angela Hill via decision only prop is at plus 105. So if she does get finished inside the distance, you get your bet voided. If you have any access to a bookie that allows bets like that or props like that, I'd hop on that even myself. Even with me picking Virna, I do agree with you. If we do see this go in the full 15 minutes, likely Angela Hill is greasing her way to a decision victory here by, keeping this fight on the feet and staying away from Jandiroba. Yeah, I'm not willing to go out there and pay the minus 185 on Jandiroba. I do think it is a little bit chalky, but in my heart of hearts, I do think she gets this takedown and eventually finds that submission victory as well. All right, let us keep this moving along. We got Michael Johnson. Never thought I'd be saying that name again. We got Michael Johnson going up against Alan Patrick in terms of odds. We're currently looking at minus 150 on Johnson, plus 130 the return on Alan Patrick. Which one do you trust here, Cody? Like, which one do we fucking put our money on and be like, okay, I feel good about this? Michael Johnson, solid striker. At the best of his best, he's beating guys like Tony Ferguson and knocking out Dustin Poirier. At his worst, he's getting beat by Clay Guida. He's getting heel hooked by Thiago Moises after whooping on him for 5 minutes. He just. I don't know what it is. I really don't know what it is with Michael Johnson. I thought there were some high hopes for this kid, even after he lost his Ultimate Fighter finale against Jonathan Brookins way back in the day, the GSP and Koscheck season, if I'm not mistaken. we had some high hopes for the kid, but he just can't string it together, man. I believe he's 3-7 in his last 10 fights. Not a good look at all. He's been out of the cage for a long time now. And he's going up against another guy, Alan Patrick, who can just as easily shit in your apple pie as Michael Johnson, right? Alan Patrick, mainly known for his grappling, likes to take his opponents to the ground and really just try to wear on them there, whether it's grinding them out to a decision victory like he did against Damir Hadzovic, or finding finishes on the ground as well, because he's definitely, pretty, I wouldn't say efficient in that aspect, but he definitely looks for the finish when he has the opportunity. Or he just gasses himself out and just loses decisions to his opponents, or gets finished late in fights as well. I lean on the Michael Johnson side ever so slightly here, because I do think he'll do a good enough job in terms of kind of keeping Alan Patrick at distance here, touching him up, using combinations, using his footwork. But like, he could get Josh Emmetted here, right? Where he's winning the fight and gets knocked out in the third round or something by Alan Patrick, who has a striking style of those jiu-jitsu guys that just throw anything at the wall and hope that something sticks. Or either they find a knockout, or they get close enough to you to be able to drag you to the ground. That's absolutely live in this situation. I don't feel good at all even breaking down this fight for anybody here. I would rather pass, if anything. But since we are doing a show and people are banking on us to at least give a prediction, I'm going to go Michael Johnson, and Johnson by decision at plus 175, over 2.5 at minus 160. I could see that being a decent play. But good God, man, I'm ready for like a Alan Patrick 4-second flying knee knockout. Like, that's what I'm expecting in this type of fight. It's just absolutely bonkers, way too volatile for me to give a legitimate take. But for the sake of the show, I'll go Johnson by decision plus 175. What about yourself here, Cody? You got something more convicted? What do you got?
Well, how could you be more convicted on this? You've got the biggest apple pie shitter of all time, Michael Johnson, taking on a guy in Alan Patrick who just you can never really get behind. Alan Patrick shows up to weigh-ins doing backflips, completely shredded, got that capoeira athleticism to him, but there's just not much. He falls right apart. I mean, the wheels fall right off when he gets tired. And Michael Johnson, it's like, I don't know, mental lapses, I guess. Like, his ring IQ is questionable at times, but he just finds a way to lose every time. It's not like he gets smoked in any of these fights. He was up 2 rounds against Josh M. Actually, let's go back. Oh, my God. Okay, you can start after the Khabib fight, because it's Khabib. It's Khabib. Okay, when he fought Justin Gaethje, he wobbles Gaethje in the first round.
Yeah.
I mean, he has him dead to rights. Gaethje recovers. Crazy stuff. Gaethje's not done in at the time. And it won Fight of the Year for 2017. Crazy, right?
And that was Gaethje's debut in the UFC also. But
yeah. Gaethje was 17-0, was the World Series of Fighting GOAT, and would go on to challenge for 2 world titles in the UFC. So, pretty legit. Michael Johnson has him rocked in the first. The Darren Elkins fight, Johnson wins the first, taken down and submitted in the second. The Emmett fight, wins the first 2. It's knocked out in the third by Emmett. The Stevie Ray fight, 1-1 going into the third, winning the third, gives up the worst bum takedown. Stevie Ray sits on top of him for 2 minutes, loses the fight. Thiago Moises, 10-8 first round, my friend. 10-8 first round. He was painting a masterpiece. Heel hook 25 seconds into the second. And then the Clay Guida fight, he didn't really look all that good, but there were spots where he could have won. You can see in his head, though, he's so afraid of getting taken down that he's not letting his offense go anymore. And he's a guy that's largely based on offense. So you'd think that the UFC would cut him after 4 straight losses, but because he's very tenured, he's fought great guys. You mentioned the fact that he's got wins over Tony Ferguson, Dustin Poirier, Edson Barbosa. He was a 4-1 favorite over Nate Diaz when he fought him. The guy, there was something there. He's still at Sanford. He's one of Henry Hu's favorite guys. It's just he can't get the win. So I feel like the UFC is almost saying, hey, we'll keep you on the roster and we'll give you a winnable fight. And Alan Patrick does represent that winnable fight. Again, if he sticks to the game plan of just shooting consecutive takedowns the entire time, he'll have success. You saw in his fight with Damir Hadzovic, he took him down 11 times. That's big. Shot 16 takedowns in the fight. So if your takedown defense is not existent, and Michael Johnson's, it's not great, even though the guy actually wrestled in junior college, whatever, that's another story for another day. If Patrick just goes out with the game plan of sticking on him with takedowns over and over and over again, he might have some success here. It's at that Hadzovic fights 4 years ago. So MMA is a sport of, well, what have you done for me lately? And it hasn't been good for him lately. The Scott Holtzman fight, no takedowns, can't muscle him to the ground, shows that he's more physical than technique, right? And the Holtzman tires him out, smashes him in the third, TKOs him. The Bobby Green fight, he does take Bobby Green down 4 times, but Bobby just pops back up. His wrestling looks flat in that fight. He looks flat in that fight. Lose to Bobby Green. Doesn't get knocked out because Bobby Green doesn't knock out anybody not named Ali Quinta, So could survive there. But that last one with Mason Jones, he's outgunned right from the start. He's not getting his takedowns. In fact, he's getting taken down. He's not looking to engage. He doesn't want to be there. He's starting to fatigue. He loses the first round handedly. He's losing the second round handedly, and he gets poked in the eye. Now the ref, oh yeah, we'll give you 5 minutes. But he's already made up his decision. No, I'm done. I ain't fighting. Are you kidding me? I'm done. And he pulls for a DQ, but gets a no contest out of it, right? He didn't want to be there. He didn't want to fight as far as I was concerned. They try to rebook the Mason Jones fight right away. And who pulls out? Alan Patrick, because he doesn't want to fight him. So now he gets Michael Johnson. Well, Michael Johnson ain't what he used to be, but he's still got that firepower. And I just feel like if he clips him, Alan Patrick's a guy that doesn't take a punch all that well. He just quit in his last fight. I would have to say, if I was taking a shot at Michael Johnson, take it from me. I'm the decision guy. I got all the first three fights on the cards. In my eyes, Maximov's going to win a decision. Tatsuya Taira's going to win a decision. Angela Hill's going to win a split decision. I think Michael Johnson clips him. I think he clips him and he puts him out. Now, that being said, Charles Oliveira wins the title. Dude's the most badass featherweight you've ever seen in your life. Pound for pound, who's better than Charles? Like, he can do it all. He can strike with all the best strikers. And I wouldn't say he can grapple with all the best grapplers because they can't grapple with him. Like, it's a one-sided beatdown. Charles is as well-rounded as it comes, right? When you look at an Alan Patrick, he pops out of the crowd and Charles gives him a hug. I was like, shit. Yeah, they are training together. And he's fighting Michael Johnson. And there's a good likelihood that this fight is going to hit the ground. So it's not like I'm super confident in Johnson, but I'm going to go with his big punching power to come out one last time before he sails off in the sunset. So give me Johnson by knockout, which is a really nice price tag at plus 285 for a guy that has big power in his hands. Could get it done, but I'm more so banking on Alan Patrick just not really wanting to be there. Good first round. Second round, he starts to tire. Third round, he starts to tire. Johnson not really want to tire as much as just end up on his back. I don't know. This is honestly, it's either Alan Patrick grinds him, totally possible, or Johnson clips him and knocks him out. That's why I'm going with the Johnson clips him by knocks him out. Not super confident on it, but that's the way I'm leaning.
Man, I don't know if you'll be able to find a better breakdown of this fight than what my guy Cody was just able to spit for you guys. Because from what I've been hearing from pretty much anybody trying to break down this fight is they want to not break down this fight. Let's just put it that way. And but yeah, no, I do agree with you. Hopefully Johnson can get back to utilizing his hands as effectively as he did when he was successful inside the UFC. Because if he even gives us maybe 70% of that, I absolutely agree with your take here. He should be able to find that button on Patrick and probably get him out of there later in this fight. But man, let's see what the 2022 version of Michael Johnson brings us when he gets into the cage this Saturday night. All right, let us move on to the next fight here. We're looking at Viviane Araujo going up against Andrea Lee. In terms of odds, we're currently looking at minus 120 for Andrea Lee, plus 100 for Viviane Araujo. Now, I was pretty big on Araujo back in the day, right? When she made her UFC debut at UFC 234 against Talita Bernardo, she absolutely butchered her for the majority of that fight, eventually finishing her in the third round. She follows that up, I believe, against Alexis Davis. And, it looked fishy for her in that second round where she was not able to get up against Alexis Davis. Luckily, she was able to nullify the takedown attempts in that third round and really just, just pull away in that third round to be able to get that decision victory. Then I believe is the next fight where she loses to Jessica Ai. Public perception of Jessica Ai has never really been the greatest. She is a decent fighter for the level of skill that we're getting in that division at that point in time. But to have that kind of loss where it was primarily a striking battle where I thought Viviane Araujo would have the clear advantage, not a good look. Jessica Ai did a really good job in terms of pretty much answering any time Viviane Araujo throw a strike. Not just answering, but answering combinations. She gets her in the output there. I believe she outstruck her by 40 significant strikes, if I'm not mistaken, in that fight. Let me just get the actual numbers here, because this is going to be very important in terms of the actual breakdown of this fight. So in that Jessica Ai fight, 98 to 56 significant strikes in favor of Jessica Ai. Almost doubled her up there. Then she goes out there and beats Montana De La Rosa and Roxanne Modafferi, a fight where, neither of those opponents are very output friendly or volume friendly. Montana De La Rosa, a lot of her success comes from her grappling. She was only able to land one takedown on 6 attempts that night. Roxanne Modafferi, not able to get any of her takedown game going. She goes 0-5 on takedowns and just gets absolutely butchered by Viviane Araujo for the majority of that fight. Then comes my girl, who's obviously fighting later on in this card, Katlyn Chookagian, who goes out there and outstrikes her 127-89 that night. Most importantly was that second round where Araujo actually got her down, got 2 minutes of control time. But near the ending of that, we see Katlyn with about a minute and a half left in that round get back to her feet and absolutely butcher Araujo with just output, volume, sticking the jab out there, following with the right hand after it, and really landing significant strikes. Ultimately forcing all three judges to give that second round to Chookagian, even though she spent 3 minutes of it on her, or sorry, 2 minutes of it on her back. I think Araujo is talented, but when she's facing girls that put volume on her and are able to move well, she's going to find some issues. And enter Andrea KGB Lee, who that's her bread and butter. She likes to go out there and she likes to throw a big amount of strikes, right? She likes to throw in volume. She's not so much a Katlyn Chookagian per se, but she does a good job in terms of staying active and really just butchering her opponents from the outside. My concern here is if Araujo takes a grapple-heavy approach, because we have seen fights where Andrea Lee at times struggles to get back to her feet. But if this fight remains a 15-minute kickboxing fight, I'm getting why the money is starting to come in on the Andrea Lee side here. Because a couple of days ago, this fight was pretty much a dead pickup. Nobody could pick a side here. The now money finally coming in on Andrea Lee, and I completely understand why. My hesitation in terms of actually betting it is, again, that main concern. If she gets stuck on her back, it wouldn't completely surprise me. I think that's something that Araujo would be capable of doing. But Lee seems to kind of be turning a corner, a solid couple wins under her belt, a couple finishes, not to mention. And I think that confidence in her is really starting to rise here. And I think we'll see her carry it on into this fight against Araujo. So Lee by decision plus 135. That tickles my fancy ever so slightly. I do want to have a little bit of a sprinkle on Lee to win in round 3 at plus 1800 as Araujo does start to slow down. And if Lee is really in this new groove and this new mode that she's in, maybe she tries to turn up the volume a little bit more in that third round and tries to get Viviane Araujo out of there, which I wouldn't, count at all, especially with the version we've been seeing from her over the last couple fights. So give me Andrea Lee, Lee by decision, preferably plus 135, but a sprinkle at plus 1800. Cody, you know me, that gets me, that gets my senses going, but I'm going Lee. What about you here?
Yeah, I'm going Lee, and you pretty much nailed all the exact same points. I mean, I think it comes down to cardio. Like, even when you look at it in retrospect, the Jessica I fight, Arroyo won the first round on all three judges' scorecards, and then she gassed out and lost the second and the third. So it's like, oh, she's a front runner. The Montana De La Rosa fight, what's interesting is Montana De La Rosa outstruck Viviane Arroyo in the third round, had her by far the best round in the third round, and won the third round. So there's another spot where it's like, okay, so she's not a third round fighter. Roxanne Modafferi, Arroyo had a 10-8 first round. She 10-8'd her, I think, on two of the scorecards, at least one of them. And because she picked up a 30-26. The second and third round are more competitive. In fact, the third round is the most competitive of all of them. Maybe she knows she's up 2 rounds. Maybe it's like she just doesn't have the gas tank. And then the Katlyn Chookagian fight, 2 of the 3 judges scored the first round for Arroyo against Katlyn Chookagian. It's the second and the third. So it's much of the same. It's like she just doesn't have the cardio to really shore it up. Now, is she a good prospect and she might be able to go to the gym and she might be able to rectify those things? Low key, how many people know this off the top of their head? She's 35 years old. Like, this is it. She's a finished product. She's extremely strong. She's got very solid takedown defense, but she's not good off her back. Not that that's going to matter in this spot, but it's that cardio. It's that cardio. If you can push her and get her to overextend herself and get the volume going, it's going to be a big difference. Now, she has a colossal grappling advantage over Andrea Lee in the sense that she could definitely just take her down, and Lee's just always been awful off her back. Gave up multiple takedowns to Joanne Calderwood, multiple takedowns to Lauren Murphy, multiple takedowns to Roxanne Modafferi. She gets taken down by anybody. Montana De La Rosa. Veronica Macedo, who's fighting up 2 weight classes seemingly, also took her down. Her takedown defense is real soft, but she knows it, and I think she spent a lot of time in the gym working on that. And similar to her current boyfriend, Tony Kelly, who also fights in the UFC, he's in wicked good physical shape. They're training very hard, and they're shoring up those holes in their game. So I think that's the only thing that was holding her back was her takedown defense. I scored the Lauren Murphy fight for her. The Joanne Calderwood fight split very close. The Roxanne fight, she can definitely win this fight. It's a couple bum takedowns. She's never out of a fight. She's always in them. It's the takedown defenses largely cost her. Now, in her last 2, Valentina Shevchenko, sorry, Antonina, my bad, Valentina, wrecking machine. Antonina's not really going to do much with the grappling, so that one's a toss-away matchup. But the Cynthia Calvillo fight, Calvillo looks washed. She doesn't look motivated. She's having trouble with the weight. She's up a weight class, I believe, now. Maybe it wasn't the best version of her, but Lee looked career best. Physically in awesome shape, put an absolute pace on her, caused her to quit on her stool between rounds, which is something I didn't think a lot of people saw coming out of Calvillo. And takedown defense obviously looked, much improved. This girl's Louisiana-based. I think she's also spent a lot of time in Texas. She's like farm girl strong. You ever see her physically? She's ripped up. She just didn't really have the technique to avoid getting taken down. She gets back up. It's the takedowns largely cost her. If she gets that, if she can shore that up, if she can put that in the rearview mirror, and the Arroyo shoots the takedown, she stuffs the takedown, she beats her up standing. If Arroyo shoots the takedown and Andrea Lee can at least even put some resistance against it, it's going to be tiring on Arroyo to complete the takedowns and have to do it repeatedly 2 or 3 times. So I think at some point the fight starts off competitive, and at some point Andrea Lee's going to start pulling away the striking, the numbers, the physicality, the better cardio, the better pace, all that stuff. So I got Andrea Lee by decision, plus 135.
Love it. I love it. All right. That wraps up the prelim portion of the card. Shout out to the 90 live viewers that we currently have. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe for the guys over at the All-Star. And also shout out to BetOnline for supporting the show as well. Link to their website is in the description below. They are giving you guys a 50% welcome bonus up to $1,000 as well. One of the best bookies out there for MMA because they have early lines, early props, and not to mention regional MMA as well, because we know you degenerates can't get enough of the UFC, can't get enough of Bellator. So we got to squeeze in the BFLs. We got to squeeze in the Invictus for you guys. That's where you guys are going to be able to get it. Shout out to BetOnline. Also for Cloudbet, that's been one of our main sponsors as well. We got a couple fun and interesting props that they have available for us on this card, and I'll get to them during the main card here. There's a couple interesting one. One of them actually is total takedowns on the entire UFC card. So that's 11 fights. Total takedowns is set at 24.5. Over 24.5 or under 24.5. You're getting a pick 'em price on either side. If you think you can crack that code, make sure you guys check out Cloudbet. Link is in the description below, and you guys can bet on that prop. All right, Cody, let's get to the first fight of the 6-fight main card. And we got a Dana White Contender Series alum, recent signee Jake Hadley, super hyped, I must say, going up against Alan Nascimento. In terms of odds, we're looking at minus 220 on Hadley and plus 185 the return on Nascimento. Now, Hadley heavily, hyped, a lot of good words out there about the kid, outside of what happened during his Dana White Contender Series fight week. Apparently, he was rude to some of the staff or something like that. And then he ends up missing weight as well. But still goes out there and defeats a short notice Mitch Raposo. If you guys remember, Raposo was actually the first pick on the Ultimate Fighter, I think a season or 2 ago, heavily hyped as well himself, but he falls short on Dana White. He falls short on the Ultimate Fighter to Ludovic Sholinian, who's obviously a UFC fighter now. Didn't pick up a win on the regional scene until recently, but his next fight was against Jake Hadley. Hadley defeats him via second round finish. Great performance from Hadley. But as soon as he finishes that fight, he walks right on over to Dana White and just gets on his knees and hands and just begs that he can get signed to the UFC. He'll never miss weight again. I don't think he had ever missed weight in his career to begin with. So for him to miss it during that week was, not good timing. Luckily, there was so much hype on him that the UFC was like, you know what? We don't want this guy to slip through our fingers. We'll give him a chance here. We'll sign him to the UFC. And they're throwing him to a solid level of opposition right off the bat, right? Alan Nascimento in his UFC debut went to a full 15 minutes against Tagir Ulanbekov and made that fight look damn close. He has good jiu-jitsu off his back. He's able to pull off reversals. He's very active with throwing submissions off of his back as well. But I think he's going to have his work cut out for him against Hadley here, who I think is just going to be the stronger guy in the wrestling positions, which I think is going to be the important part here. But even in the striking, I think Hadley throws with a little bit more intention, a little bit more aggressiveness, and that's going to keep Nascimento on his back foot for the majority of this fight. And I didn't even get to the best part. Hadley's control is probably one of the best that I've seen, man. He does a very good job in getting that back mount from his opponents, either controlling them from there, attacking with the rear naked choke, attacking with ground and pound. It looks really good to me. But the one question mark I do have, though, is Cage Warriors, I don't really rate their regional scene that highly. So of course you can go out there and do that against these European fighters and just absolutely smash them on the ground. Now you're fighting a legitimate black belt in jiu-jitsu and Nascimento, who is not going to go out easily. So if Hadley faces any type of resistance here, I'm intrigued to see how he reacts. His fight against Blaine O'Driscoll in Cage Warriors, that was a great back and forth fight. Both guys had tremendous amount of success, and if I'm not mistaken, Hadley actually ended up finishing him in the third round of that fight. Very close fight, though. Very, very back and forth. Blaine had his own level of success there, landing takedowns, getting control time as well. But it was ultimately Hadley who was able to get that rear naked choke in the third round. The Luke Shanks fight pretty much controlled him for the majority of 25 minutes. The kid looks like he has the goods. But this, I think, in my opinion, is going to be his first legitimate test, which is why I'm not trusting him at minus 220. What I do like, though, is the fight to go to decision. I think it's going to be a back and forth grappling match. Fight goes to decision is currently minus 125 or minus 150, depending on where you're looking at it. But even Hadley by decision at plus 150, I would rather play that than the plus 220. I'd be surprised if he finishes a guy like Nascimento outside of, strikes, right? Like unless he catches him with the big punch on the feet. I'd be surprised if he finds a submission against Nascimento myself. So I'll still pick Hadley. I'll take him by decision, but fight goes to decision tickles my fancy the most. What about you here, Cody?
Yeah, this is the one where I got mixed emotions on. Like, on one hand, you do like Hadley, what he brings to the table. He's very strong. He's a good wrestler. He's an undefeated prospect. The kid looks good-looking kid. On the other hand, it's like I think that there's still a long ways for him to go. He's 25, so it's not like he's super young by any stretch. But, yeah, it's tough to go from the European regional scene, most notably Cage Warriors, and then jumping into the fire of just some of these, different talents, different places, right? When you saw him come against Mitch Raposo, he's a minus 300 favorite over Raposo. Raposo's in on short notice. Hadley's had a full camp. He's supposed to fight somebody else. The fight got moved back a week. He got like
Candelario,
a week over.
I think, if I'm not mistaken.
At 125, yeah, was it?
Oh no, sorry. Hadley was supposed to fight Clayton Rodriguez,
right.
2 weeks before that. So very interesting switch of opponents there. But yeah, continue, please.
Yeah, so he puts a full camp in to fight Clayton Rodriguez. Rodriguez pulls out. They're like, "Hey, stay here. Don't worry, we'll get you somebody else." And then they just bring in Raposo. So he's a minus 300 favorite over Raposo, who effectively beats him in the first round. I mean, he won the first round 10-9 on everyone's scorecards. And then in the second round, you see Raposo start to fatigue, which is completely understandable because he took the fight on short notice. So how much of that is Hadley looks awesome? This is a kid you want to have a ton of investment in. And how much of that is, it was just another good spot. But Mick Maynard and Sean Shelby both walk out of the Apex that night. They're sickened by the fact that Dana signs him. They don't like the kid. There's whatever the altercation was. The fact that they both walked out, both of his matchmakers walk out, it's a little bit telling that obviously something happened. Now it's like, okay, kid, you're going to make your UFC debut. Here you go. Here's Alan Nascimento. He's 0-2 in the UFC, so if you beat him, it really doesn't do anything for you. But good luck beating him. Now you might be able to beat him, but pack a lunch with you because it's going to be a task. Look at this guy's losses, dude. Will Campazano by decision. Will Campazano end up being a UFC veteran? Ricardo Ramos by decision. Ricardo Ramos is a UFC veteran. Bruno Azevedo by decision. Bruno Azevedo is 17-3 right now. He's going to be in the UFC very shortly. Yuki Montoya on a split decision. Yuki Montoya, the top-ranked Japanese flyweight for years. Rolian Pava on a split decision. Rolian Pava pretty good in the UFC right now. And also the biggest flyweight you've ever seen in your life. Tagir Ulanbekov on a split decision. Tagir, a legitimate top flyweight in the world. He's never been finished. He's never been almost finished. This dude is cast iron durable. BJJ black belt, skills everywhere. He's just a problem. He's not a sexy matchup. He's 0-2 in the UFC, right? So if you beat him, who gives a shit? You're supposed to win. If you lose to him, which is entirely possible, it's just hard to look good. Ulanbekov didn't look good. Pava didn't look good. Here's the other thing with him, right? In the Rolian Pava fight, he outstruck Rolian Pava 105-81. He landed 105 significant strikes. The dude was all output. The dude was all volume. The next fight against Ulanbekov, he's on his back the entire time, so he throws up 175 submission attempts. Like, he's balls to the walls the entire time. You stand with him, he comes at you. You take him down to relieve a little bit of pressure, he's throwing up submissions. I carry Tagir Ulanbekov much higher regard than I carry Jake Hadley. Yeah, I would say this kid's live, but everybody loves an undefeated prospect, and everybody loves the sharp talking Englishman or Irishman. They talk a good game on the microphone and really self-confidence. We all like that stuff, but everyone's always got to go eventually, and it's just on the matchup. And I just feel like it's a live underdog spot. So I don't think Nascimento would finish Hadley, per se. Him by decision is plus 400, and what you need is the judges decide it for him. Listen, on the Contenders and in the UFC, he lost a split decision. And both times you had people scoring it for him. Just one instead of two, the judges agreed. This could be the same situation. If it's standing, bull rush him. Throw strikes. Throw up volume. Make it look good. This kid's going to get flustered, and he's going to take you down. As soon as he hits the ground, throw up submission attempts. And last but not least, the matchmakers don't like him. Both of them reside in Las Vegas. Both of them are close at the commission. Tinfoil hat on. It's just like, dude, screw this kid, right? If it's a close decision, don't give it to him. So that's what I'm hoping, because Nascimento plus 400 by points. I'll take any conspiracy I can get. I just need the kid to go out there and do some work. So give me the Brazilian Nascimento.
There you go. I don't mind it, man. I was looking for that. I was searching deep down for myself to actually take the Nascimento side. I can't do it. I'm just passing all in all, but I do like this to go to decision as well. Again, another spot that we kind of agree on here is seeing this fight go the full 15 minutes at plus 400 for Nascimento to win by decision. I don't mind it. I like it. I like it. I like it. All right. Let's move on to the next fight here. And we got the last Dana White Contender Series alum making his debut here. Manuel Torres going up against UFC veteran Frank Camacho. In terms of odds, we're currently looking at minus 125 for Torres and plus 105 the return on Frank Camacho. Now, Torres opened up at minus 225 on BetOnline. He's stuck around minus 150 for the majority of the couple days, and then came down to minus 125. So a ton of money coming in on Frank Camacho to kind of make this closer to a pick'em fight. Now, something special that Cloudbet is actually offering in regards to Dana White Contender Series debutants is you can decide on how many of them win. If you choose all three of them to win, you get plus 725. If you choose two of them to win, it's plus 135. If you choose one of them to win, it's plus 145. And if you don't think any of them win, it's plus 775. So that's another special prop there that Cloudbet has. Make sure you guys check out the link in the description below and sign up there if you guys do want to take any action on that. Now, in regards to this matchup, there's always this like Dana White Contender Series debutant going up against a UFC veteran who's on a little bit of a slump. Last week, it was Journey Newsom taking on, who's the kid that he beat? Fernie Garcia. They made Journey Newsom like a plus 130, plus 120 underdog. That was a no-brainer for me to take that shot, and I'm glad that I did because it paid off. I didn't really even think that Fernie Garcia deserved to be in the UFC to begin with. Now here against Manuel Torres, there's a lot of volatility on his record, right? He's going out there and just starching some guys in the first round with submission victories, or he's getting heel hooked, for God's sakes. Not even 3 years ago. That's not a good look when you're getting heel hooked by randos on the regional scene, especially in Mexico, right? Mexico is not a big hub for regional circuit or anything like that, or at least producing legitimate opponents or fighters coming out of that region. He seems like a very volatile fighter, and if he does slip up at all here, Frank Camacho, has a very solid striking game, big power in his hands, and he could absolutely go out there and make Manuel Torres pay in this spot. There's obviously a lot of big question marks around Frank Camacho, though. When your last loss is to a guy like Justin James, you gotta put a little bit of a red flag on it. Outside of that, though, his other losses are not that bad. Li Jingliang, Benio Dariush, I believe Drakkar Close and Drew Dober as well. Like, solid fighters, solid UFC lifers, essentially, that he's losing against. And then in comes Justin James on short notice, knowing that he needs a knockout victory here, considering the fact that he came in on short notice, pretty much on fight week, and Frank Camacho pretty much hasn't beat everywhere else. But if I put my fist onto your chin perfectly, you're more than likely going to go out, and that's exactly what happened that night. But Frank Camacho, when he's on, he throws in combinations. He has great head kicks. He has great footwork, good power, like I said. And I feel like he can show that off here against Manuel Torres as long as his durability holds up. That's the big question mark. So rather than picking a side here, like I said, I do expect this fight to be quite violent. Fight doesn't go to decision is a little chalky here at minus 300, but I don't think that's a bad parlay piece. The over-under at 1.5 is just, a little bit sketchy for me. It might require this fight to get into the second round, maybe even the third round. But I do think this is either an early Manuel Torres finish, round one finish plus 250 for Torres, or Camacho ends up getting the finish probably in the second or third round, maybe even in the first round, right? Maybe he comes back with this chip on his shoulder that he wants to remind folks that he's still the real deal and he can still go out there and beat debutants, essentially. Camacho to win in round 2 is plus 800. Camacho to win in round 3 is plus 1200. But I like fight doesn't go to decision, and I like Camacho inside the distance at plus 200. Am I jerking off Frank Camacho too much here, or what do you think about this fight?
Well, considering how he's looked his last number of fights, like, yeah, I don't think you can, with any type of real conviction, get behind this guy and have a whole lot of confidence in it. But I honestly agree with a large majority of your points. You can also shop around on the price a little bit. Fight doesn't go the distance at minus 275, but way better than that. The under 2.5 at minus 200. Because what are the chances this is going to end in the last 2.5 minutes? These guys are going to meet in the center of the cage, hopefully throw down. But when you look at Torres, it's all first round finishes. Colton Englund, 2 minutes. The guy before that, 25 seconds. Guy before that, 1:03. Guy before that, lost, 1:23. Guy before that, first round. Guy before that, 59 seconds. It's a lot of quick finishes, right? So if he wins, you would think that he's going to clip Camacho the same way James did. And if he loses, he's going to tire because he's a one-round fighter. It's what he brings. And when he went on the Contender Series, he fought his heart out. He went for it with a first-round finish, is generally how he fights. It's aesthetically pleasing. Dana likes that stuff. They're going to sign you. Now you come to the UFC, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to go out there and you're going to fight hard. So I think Manuel Torres is going to come out there. Here is my little theory on this one. Been thinking about it a lot last night in particular. Mentioned it with Paul yesterday, but thinking about it a lot. So imagine you're Frank Camacho, right? And everyone knows you for this guy that just stands and bangs. Like, remember his fight with Damian Brown? That's now 5 years ago. Wow, crazy. His fight with Damian Brown is one of the craziest fights you'll ever see. Like, they just go and just battle it out. Test of wills. And then Jeff Neal knocks him out with a head kick. Okay, now Justin James clips you and knocks you out. He's starting to take damage. But what people don't remember about Frank Camacho is he's actually a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt out of Guam. Competed in like the ADCC regional trials and actually had a lot of success, is a good grappler. When he came to the UFC, man, he got bonus hunting. He's having crazy fights with guys. He wins a whole lot of fight of the nights. He stands and he bangs. But getting knocked out by Justin James in 41 seconds his last time out, which, by the way, he was a minus 300 favorite in. Justin James took the fight on like 3 days' notice. I think that's an eye-opener, that it's like, yeah, you can have fun fights. You can stand and bang. You can do all that, which is great. But you're still only 32 years old. At the time he was 30 years old. You're taking wear and tear. You're getting knocked out now. Not good for the brain. So he's taken some time off. He's pulled out of the fight with Brock Weaver and Matt Frivola. But I think he's healed. But I honestly think that he's going to try to get back to his grappling. Because, again, you just got knocked out by an unheralded guy who's no longer with the promotion, by the way. The damage is starting to wear on you. And you're fighting a guy that does two things, right? One, stand in the center of the cage and throw down. And two, is terrible at grappling. You'd have to be a moron to just stand in front of him and throw down. That's his path to victory. That's what he's able to do. Take him out of his game. Frank Camacho is physically strong. I think he can take down Manuel Torres. And once he takes down Manuel Torres, he's got a big grappling advantage over him. If you look at anything on Frank Camacho's social media, he is in wicked good shape. You know, he has had the time off. He has had some injuries. But physically, the guy looks like he's extremely motivated to get in there and do the damn thing. And I think in submission is the path. So many people see him as a knockout guy. So many people see him as an inside-the-distance guy. No one's looking at that submission prop because he just doesn't submit anybody, nor does he ever attempt to really submit anybody. I think it's live on the table here. And if I'm his coach, I'm telling him, dude, when he wins by first-round knockout or submission. He puts it on you. When he loses, it's the finish. And it's not just the finish, my friend. You brought it up, but you didn't go really in depth. You got heel hooked 59 seconds by a guy that was 8-7 from Mexico. That's bad. It's the next one. He got knee barred, 1:23, by Carlos Calvo, which means one of two things. Either his parents made his middle name the same as his last name, or his parents are related.
Oh God!
not the best loss to be having on your record. It seems like he just gives up his leg as soon as the fight hits the ground. I think Camacho is going to lock something up. Camacho by decision. My book, my favorite book, Bovada, doesn't have a Camacho by submission prop. What I am seeing is certain things I don't mind. Camacho round 2 submission 2,800. Camacho round 3 submission plus 4,500. Even Camacho first round submission plus 1,800. Those all look good. And then, of course, you got these double chance parlays where you could go Camacho by TKO or submission plus 200. Yeah. You could take him by submission or decision, but he's not going to win a decision. Let's be real here. That's plus 250. I got a feeling that the submission's live, and whereas, you know, you and I, we always talk about this. Oh, Blagoy could submit him, and he's plus 500, but it didn't happen. And Kevin Holland could have submitted Cowboy Oliveira plus 700. It didn't end up happening. This is one of the same thing, you know. You need the big plus money to make it worth your while, but it is a possibility. And I think if he just goes in there and fights the proper game plan, he's taking him down and he's submitting him. And that's what I'm going to try to bank on. So the under is where you want your biggest investment. Under 2.5 looks really good. Fight goes distance, as you mentioned. And then if you want to get crazy with it and have a little bit of sprinkle, I think I'm looking at that Camacho by submission prop.
Based on best fight odds, Camacho by submission on a bunch of places sitting at plus 900, plus 1,000, plus 1050. So if you just want to take him straight up by sub, Cody's got that. It's not even a tinfoil hat conspiracy, man. The guy has 2 fucking submission losses in the last 3 to 4 years against whatever competition. So yeah, not a bad angle at all, and solid numbers there on that Camacho by sub line. All right.
Yeah, and then sorry, just to cut you off, but then your last thing there is that look at Camacho's fight. So Justin James, power wrestler, right? Benil Dariush, high level BJJ black belt. Nick Hine, high level judo black belt. Jeff Neal, well, he was a top 10 contender. Drew Nober was a top 10 contender. Damian Brown, BJJ black belt. Jingliang Li, top 15 contender. He's only fought good guys, and most of those guys are very difficult to take down and submit. The guy he's fighting now is not difficult to take down or submit. Doesn't that just seem like it's finally a spot where the submission could come through? I'm hoping so.
For that plus 1,000 ticket, I am hoping so as well, Cody. We'll see how that goes. All right, let's move on to the next fight here. We got 4 fights left to go. Next of which is Chookagian, fresh off signing a new contract with the UFC, taking on Amanda Ribas. In terms of odds, we're looking at minus 175 on Chookagian and plus 150 the return on Ribas. Now, I like comparing Chookagian to the male or the female version of Neil Magny. Very reliable in terms of going out there and you know what she's going to do. She's going to put volume on you. She's going to use her footwork as best as possible. And her get-ups are really starting to get better, right? Since that Valentina Shevchenko fight, everybody just thought you just take Chookagian down and you can just grind her out. But they're overlooking the fact that it was Valentina Shevchenko that was able to do that, right? Since that fight, she's been able to stuff, I believe, what is that? 8 out of 12 takedown attempts from her opponents. And even when she does get taken down, she does a good job in terms of causing scrambles, usually going for the knee bar. That's usually what she tries to go for, attack the leg, a leg lock of some sort. That causes the scramble. That allows her to either get top position or get back to her feet, where she's able to get back to her bread and butter, which is jab, 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 tennis sounds, distance striking. That's Chookagian's game. That's what you can rely on her for. And I think she can do that here against Amanda Ribas. You know, Ribas's wrestling game is not the greatest, in my opinion. A lot of her success with the wrestling comes from her opponents kind of overthrowing and overextending on their combinations. See the Randa Marcos fight. See the Verna Jandiroba fight, where you see them throwing very slowly and they overextend with overhand rights. And then Amanda Ribas just changes levels, grabs the body lock, drags this fight to the ground. I'll be surprised if she's going to be able to get close enough to Chookagian here. Say what you want about smaller cage, bigger cage. Chookagian's shown that she can do it in any size cage. She can stick and move with the best of them. I really believe that she's starting to seek finishes, right? You see it in the Jennifer Maia fight where she's really sitting down on her punches and letting her strikes go, trying to get some power behind it, trying to get some finishes going. The last finish she has on her record was her last fight before coming to the UFC, where she knocked out some chick with a knee up the middle, I believe only seconds into their fight at CFFC. Since then, obviously, she's pretty much just mainly been a decision fighter. But now that she's on a new contract with the UFC and at this stage of her career, I think she wants to continue to show the UFC that she's worth the money and she wants to go out there and try to put on entertaining performances and dominant finishes. Hopefully, she can do that here against Ribas because the bookmakers are privy to it, man. They got her via KO at only plus 500. We're talking about somebody who hasn't had a knockout victory in close to 6 to 7 years. But on the Amanda Ribas side, it doesn't look good when she's getting hit by better strikers. And not even better strikers, like the Poliana Vienna fight from the regional scene. She's getting absolutely touched up there and she gets finished. Then the Marina Rodriguez fight, legitimately better striker, finds the finish in the second round. Chookagian can put together good enough strikes, powerful enough strikes here to make Ribas really hurt, maybe break, and eventually find a finish later in this fight. I'm going with Chookagian. I already have a 3-unit bet on her money line at minus 175. But like a part of me really wants to play that KO line at plus 450, plus 500. But I just feel for this scenario, it should be wider. Like, I think it's just the bookmakers knowing that that's what we're going to be focusing on this week. Hence why it's only plus 500. So I'm going to go Chookagian. I think she puts on a master clinic here in terms of the striking. Last thing I'll say about this, and I'll flip it on over to you, Cody. In regards to Ribas' striking game. I think she's pretty much fooled a good chunk of people, right? Technically speaking, it looks like she does all the right things. Her striking looks smooth. It looks slick. It looks smooth and slick against girls like Randa Marcos and Verna Jandiroba and Mackenzie Dern. But how does it look against women who are better strikers than her? We only got to see it at one point this so far, which is against Marina Rodriguez. Now we're going to see it again this weekend against Katlyn Chookagian, as Chookagian is clearly the better striker here, and we'll see it on full display. So Chookagian by decision is like the historically viable option here. I believe that's probably around plus 115, plus 130. Let me just quickly get that number here. Chookagian minus 115 actually. And then the tinfoil hat in me is saying Chookagian by KO here at plus 450, plus 500, a cumulative strike TKO type of thing. So yeah, give me Chook. And I think she does work here. Oh, sorry. Last thing before I flip it on YouTube, Cody. The Cloudbet actually has a specific prop on all three women's MMA fights here, whether they go to decision or not. If all three of them go to decision, you're getting plus 210. If they don't go to decision, you're getting minus 257. So keep that in mind if you guys do want to place a bet on that crazy prop here on Cloudbet. Cody, what are you feeling here from this women's flyweight bout? Last thing also, Amanda Ribas coming up in weight. Ribas was scheduled to fight Michelle Waterson a couple weeks ago. Waterson pulls out, in steps Chookagian, but up at 125 compared to at 115 pounds where Ribas normally gets her job done. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, I think Katlyn Chookagian, since she's come up to 125, she looks good. She looks solid. I mean, she always does the same thing she always does, fast, stay to the outside, whole lot of kiosks. If you close your eyes, you can't tell the difference. Is it women's tennis or is it the Katlyn Chookagian fight? I don't know. But yeah, you definitely hear it, especially in the Apex where it's limited crowd and small, and the acoustics, you've been there, very, very, very loud. You're going to hear a whole lot of kiosks going down. Is that going to get the judges to side with her? Hopefully. Yeah, I think she just stays at the outside, chips away. Her wrestling's actually vastly improved, not that bad. She's BJJ brown belt. I spent a lot of time working on her grappling. I think she's okay here. Don't get taken down. If you do, get back up. That's not the worry. It's just keep this as a standing battle. Now, how does she lose a standing battle against Amanda Ribas? That's the great question. The one thing with Katlyn Chookagian, she doesn't have a whole lot of power, so it's a lot of touch, go. And I just think some judges don't like it. Like, even if you go back to the Viviane Arroyo fight, she wins a unanimous decision. I thought she won 2 and 3 pretty clean. But if you go on MMA decisions, it's like pretty split. A lot of people actually scored the fight for Arroyo. But why? She got handedly outstruck. But it's like people don't like touch, go. They don't like, I just hit you 4 times. It's like, yeah, but I countered you with a nice, good right hand. It's like, yeah, but it's 4-1 on the striking number. It's like, yeah, but who cares? I punched you square with a good right hand. So it does come down to who the judges are. And if it's going to be a striking battle and it's going to be tight, it's going to be tightly contested, and it's going to be a greasy decision, I don't know how much big involvement I would want. But yeah, again, I think Katlyn Chookagian's got her outnumbered pretty good here in the stand-up department. This is something you zoned in on, which is why you maybe speculated a potential Katlyn Chookagian knockout victory. But see, I hear you 100%. Ribas is coming up to 125 pounds, first and foremost. But this is what's interesting to me is that she's fought such low level. Emily Schitmeyer, right? Mackenzie Dern, who has no striking. Randa Marcos, who has no striking. Paige Van Zandt, who has no striking. Gets knocked out by Marina Rodriguez, and then Verna Jandiroba, who has no striking. So effectively, she's never fought anybody that could strike except for Marina Rodriguez. In that fight, she gets an early takedown in the first round, neutralizes her. Nothing happens. The second round, she gets hit clean in the face. She don't react well, man. This is not a girl that's probably sparred overly hard. This is not a girl that's taken a whole lot of shots in the gym, I don't think. She didn't wear it very well. She's noticeably flustered from the shot, and then she ends up getting TKO'd less than a minute into the second. Now, people have been like, well, I'll give her a pass there because Marina Rodriguez is a heavy hitter, but that's the misconception. Marina Rodriguez's fights in the UFC have been as follows. Decision with Marcos, decision with Jessica Aguilar, decision with Tisha Torres, decision with Cynthia Calvillo, decision with Carlos Esparza, punched out Amanda Ribas on like the first punch she landed, decision with Michelle Waterson, decision with Mackenzie Dern, decision with Zhang Yan. She's not a power puncher. She's a good striker, sure, but like this is not somebody that you should be flustered from. Now it's MMA. Anything can happen. If Marina Rodriguez punched me in the face, I can't say I wouldn't be hurting either, right? But not a good look. And now you got Caitlin Chookagian, who figures to land over 100 significant strikes, mostly does get it done with her hands. I'm not saying she's going to knock her out. I'm saying she might overwhelm her and get a TKO stoppage. So your theory is not wrong at all. It's just conventional thinking would sure to God bring you with Caitlin Chookagian by decision, right? Like, she's such a decision fighter. But you found a little hole there, and I completely agree with you, dude. I could see it as a viable possibility, which is the reason why I wouldn't just spam bet a Caitlin Chookagian by decision. It's not like a dead set guarantee. It's like, I haven't seen Ribas take a whole lot of damage standing, and if she can't take Caitlin Chookagian down, I wouldn't call it damage, but she's going to be getting hit a whole bunch over the course of 15 minutes. She might not react particularly well.
Not to mention a 6-inch height advantage, 2-inch reach advantage. Like, she's going to dwarf her inside the cage. I'd be surprised if Ribas has any success even closing the distance and, getting her own offense off, or even trying to get a takedown attempt going, because that's what she's going to need here to find success, in my opinion.
And even if you go back to Caitlin Chookagian's fight when she took on Cynthia Calvillo, right? So the Cynthia Calvillo fight, a lot of it was, well, she'll probably get taken down. In fact, she's a plus 205 underdog against Cynthia Calvillo. And I remember I had Caitlin Chookagian in that spot. The whole thought process was, she's been working a lot on her wrestling. Check anything on her online. She knows, similar to other fighters, similar to an Angela Hill, takedown defense is an issue for you. Similar to Andrea Lee, right? Takedown defense is an issue for you. You need to shore it up. And it seemed to me like she'd done a really good job of shoring it up. So, it's an underdog play, plus 205, sure. I hit it then, but I remember I crammed it in the first round after I seen Cynthia Calvillo couldn't take her down, right? She shot, she got stuffed, and right away it was like, oh no. Caitlin Chookagian is physical at 25. Cynthia, who couldn't make 115, came up to 125 and figured to be physical. She wasn't. That was an excellent performance to Caitlin Chookagian, and you saw the grappling had really made strides in that fight. Now you take on Ribas, who's coming up to 125, isn't known for, wrestling, has fought in very low competition thus far. Prime for the taking, right? The TKO, maybe we're overvaluing that, but the odds look all right, not terrible. Certainly a possibility, but with Caitlin Chookagian, yeah, I mean, it's like Tisha Torres, she knocked out Sam Hughes, or a corner stoppage Sam Hughes, but come on. What we're hoping for here is a corner stoppage. Overwhelm her and have them do something. Or, I don't know, quit on your stool. Or have a cut, have a laceration stoppage. All those exist. All those could happen. I'll leave you with this. My boy Antonio McKee, AJ McKee's dad, is my boy Antonio. He's at MFC, and he goes, I got to bring up the streak here. He says, if I don't finish this guy, I'm going to retire. It was like, dude, you haven't finished anybody in years. Like, that's a bold proclamation, man. He had won 6 straight decisions, and was one finish in his last 13 fights, right? And he guarantees, if I don't finish this guy, I'm going to retire. And he went in there and he took him down and he smashed him with like 3 elbows and a big old cut open, and they stopped it. Like, what a man of his word. How the hell did you know that was going to happen, right? Dopest, right? That was like Babe Ruth calling his shot and smoking. He guaranteed he was going to finish him or he was going to retire. And then the UFC gave him one fight after that, and then they gypped him. He should have beat Jacob Volkman, split decision, and they cut him off a one-fight deal because he just talks so much shit. And now his kid's former Bellator champion, so like life goes on. But I will take one of those kind of stoppages for Caitlin Chookagian. I am not too proud. Take it how you can get it, right?
I hope that she gets out there. I'm a big Caitlin Chookagian fan, and people scoff whenever I say that. But man, she's reliable, and that's all that I need. Whenever, especially when I'm betting a girl in that minus 150 to minus 200 range, she always seems to fit that mold here. All right, let us move on to the next fight here. This fight should give us some violence, I hope. We got Davy Grant going up against Louis Smolka. In terms of odds, we're looking at minus 300 on Davy Grant, plus 250 the return on Louis Smolka. So I got a couple of statistics here to try to back up my violence theory behind this fight, because I'm expecting nothing but violence here. 34 out of 44 combined fights have finished inside the distance for both guys, which is about, 77% hit rate, which, would imply the line should be closer to minus 335. I already got a bet on it around minus 165. It's already up to minus 180, minus 200 at certain places that I'm seeing. Davy Grant has 6 losses on his record. 4 of them have come via submission. 7 out of the 17 wins for Louis Smolka have come via submission. So not a bad idea to see Smolka potentially wrapping up that back and wrapping up the neck and taking that home with him as well. Davy Grant, not many KO victories on his record. I believe he only has 3, but 2 of them coming in his last 2 victories against guys like Jonathan Martinez and Martin Day. Oh, did we forget that Louis Smolka also got knocked out in his last fight by, not much of a knockout puncher in Vince Morales, at least not in his UFC career? I think that Davy Grant, if he goes out there with the type of aggressiveness we normally expect from him, just like he did against Marlon Vera, and really putting it on Louis Smolka early in this fight, he could find that big shot and put Louis Smolka out here. On the flip side, I do think if Louis Smolka can get this fight to the ground, I think his jiu-jitsu is good enough to be able to find a finish against a guy like Davy Grant. Now, Grant does have a plethora of submission victories of his own, but it seems like when guys are better on the ground than him, they're usually able to wrap up a neck or an arm or whatever it might be, and they're able to get the tap from Davy Grant. I'm expecting all action from both guys here, which is pretty much how they fight. Louis Smolka moves forward, doesn't really have the greatest striking defense, and he paid for it in his last fight, but that's his style. He moves forward, he digs to the body, he tries to drown you, and then eventually get you to the ground and either finish you via TKO on the ground or by submission. Like I said, 7 out of his 17 wins coming via submission, and I'd say at least a handful more coming via ground and pound finish as well. So I do like the Davy Grant side here, but minus 300 is a little bit crazy because I do think that Smolka could be very live here if he's able to get this into the grappling realm. I think a lot of it is obviously recency bias, not to mention, those 2 big knockout victories that Davy Grant has in his last 2 wins. Mix that with the Louis Smolka knockout in his last fight. That's why we're getting minus 300 on Davy Grant in this spot. I would rather take Grant via KO. I believe that's currently sitting at plus 135. I feel much more comfortable paying that than minus 300. But all in all, I just don't see this fight going to a decision. Even the under 2.5, I don't mind that either. It's a little bit chalky at this point in time because it seems like people are finally getting privy to that line. But man, I got a big bet on it, honestly. I really think that one of these guys is going to end up finding the finish. I think it's going to be Davy Grant finding that knockout. But it does cover this as a potential later Louis Smolka submission victory. I could absolutely see that as well. Give me Grant KO, but the ultimate bet is going to be fight doesn't go to decision. How do you feel about this one?
Yeah, I know you got a big bet on it, so you probably don't want to hear what I have to say too much here.
That's why I like it. That's why I love chopping it up with you. If you don't like what I say, please hit me back.
No, again, I see where you're coming from 100% that Davy Grant could knock him out. Louis Smolka just got knocked out in his last time out. It was the first time of his career against Vince Morales, who's just not a power puncher. It's like, yeah, maybe writing's on the wall for them. Maybe he's going to catch him. And Davy Grant, he's only got 3 career knockout wins, but you're right. Maybe 2 of them are somewhat recently. So, if the number makes sense to you and you want to take a shot on the under 2.5, yeah, I do see it. I don't know. I can't come to the same conclusion, I don't think. Davy Grant is strong. He's physical. He's in your face. He's throwing bombs. He's looked way better in his last 4 fights than he ever has. He's finally hitting his stride, which is surprising because he is 36 years old. But again, it's not too far back. You could see the Gregory Popov fight where he wins a competitive split decision, can't knock him out. Striking doesn't look very good in that fight. The Martin Day fight, Davy Grant got dropped in that fight. It was 1-1 going into the third, and Davy Grant knocked him out in the third. But Martin Day went 0-4 in the UFC. He's not good, right? Jonathan Martinez, Davy Grant lost the first round, clips Martinez in the second. That's a decent win, but as we've seen with Jonathan Martinez, his chin's not all that good. So, yeah, Davy Grant could knock him out, but it just seems to me like he's a lot stronger than Louis Smolka. He could muscle him down. He could take him down. He could set up shop on top of him, which is, of course, going to grind away at the clock. Stand up. He's going to come in. He's probably going to throw the overhand right, try to bomb him, try to fluster him, and corral him up against the cage maybe. But, yeah, I just feel like Smolka, I want to give him a pass. It's the first time he got knocked out. He's got one of those, tough Hawaiian chins. I think he's losing this fight. I think we're all agreeing that Davy Grant, even at minus 300, is definitely the play. But I don't know that I'm so dead set on his durability is not there. I don't know that I'm so dead set on Davy Grant as a finisher to begin with. This one screams to me like it'll bank up some rounds. Just the impression I get. Why I'm not calling you crazy though, because you're not wrong about this, is these are Louis Smolka's opponents. I want you to stop me when you hear a name of a guy that you would consider to be heavy-handed. Vince Morales, Alberto Quinones, Jose Alberto Quinones, Casey Kinney, Ryan McDonald, Matt Schnell, Sumaderji. I guess he would be the biggest of those guys. Matus Nicolau, Tim Elliott, Ray Borg, Brendan Moreno. Of course, that was 6 years ago, so it's not. He was like so young at the time. Ben Nguyen, Paddy Holohan, Neil Seary. Remember him? He would drive a forklift, come fight, and then post a shot of him on Monday with his face all mangled, still forklift driving. Like, Smolka's actually not fun anybody who would be relatively compared to a dangerous power puncher. And Vince Morales was certainly not one, and he knocked him out early in the first round. Davey Grant on paper is not one either. But he's a better striker than Vince Morales. He has more power than Vince Morales. He has more power and better striking than a vast majority of the guys that Lewis has fought. And Lewis has this stupid stance where he's so straight. He's so straight up in the air. His head's right there on the line for you. You're not crazy. You're not crazy. I don't know if I'd have it as a big bet. I don't know if I'd have it like as my lock of the night. But, you know, you could do worse. I just got to lean the other way. I had Grant by decision. And Grant by decision was a pretty big price tag. I think it's plus 325. Let me just confirm the number that I had. Davey Grant by decision plus
250, plus 300 certain places.
Yeah, plus 250. Yeah, not the worst. You'd probably want to get a little bit more meat on your bone. The him by knockout though is only plus 135. I guess like you're saying, you just like the under 2.5. Kind of does cover you both sides in case something happens, right?
The one thing I would say about the Gregory Popov fight, although that went to decision, he went for 6 takedowns in the fight, knowing that he's not the better striker there. If you remember, Popov, solid Muay Thai base, very good striker in his own right. And I think that was Davey Grant's pretty much mission in that fight. Get that fight to the ground, clinch up with him, just try to, you know, stay away from that range striking where he could probably get off his best strikes. Whereas here with Smolka, Smolka is probably the better overall BJJ guy. I'd be surprised if Davey Grant looks to kind of grapple with him here and just try to control him for the majority of this fight. I think he sees that, Smolka can be hit, he can be rocked. And even though it was his first knockout loss in his last fight, he might be hitting that wall now, right? He might be hitting that wall of potentially starting to drop in his durability, especially against a guy in Vince Morales, who just doesn't seem like he hits all that hard to begin with, especially if we're looking on paper as well. So yeah, again, I completely respect your take in seeing Davey Grant just, beating on him for the majority of 50 minutes and taking home a decision victory. I just got this feeling in the this I don't know what it is. Running the tape, all that stuff with the power that Davey Grant throws with, I'd be surprised if Louis Smolka is able to survive that. And then on the flip side as well, with the way Smolka fights, I'd be surprised if Grant survives that relentless pressure of Smolka, which is why I don't want to pay the minus 300 on Davey Grant in this spot, because Smolka is much more live than that line indicates in my mind. I just don't have the balls to play the money on him either.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Maybe there was a time with Davey, even though he's lost his last two, they're his best performances. Like the rematch of Marlon Vera, he won the first round and was competitive throughout. And Marlon Vera is a top 5 challenger. The Adrian Yanez fight, he's another plus 240 underdog to Yanez, who everyone's raving about his technical boxing. And he's nip-tuck at a very, very competitive striking affair with them throughout the entire thing. So it's like Grant can strike, Grant can hang. I think, even if Louis Smolka tires him out, like, does Grant tire at that rate that Smolka would need? Like, I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, I just go back to the Popov fight. He scored 6 takedowns. With the Martin Dave fight, he went 2 for 4. He won his 2 takedowns in that one. And then he shot takedowns against Jonathan Martinez. He shot takedowns against Marlon Vera. He shot takedowns against Adrian Yanez. Chances are he's going to at least shoot a few of them against Smolka. Smolka can't wrestle at all. So if he shoots, he's going to take him down. If he takes him down, probably just lays on top of him. I don't think Smolka's grappling is good enough to lock something up off his back. But, maybe after you watch that last fight with Smolka and Morales, it's like, oh, I know where I want to fight this guy. And it's not on the ground. Maybe you're right about that. Maybe you just want to go out there and knock him out. But I'm hoping Smolka's durability lasts at least one more time, because I didn't mind that plus 250 on the Grant by decision.
Love it. I love it. All right, let's keep this thing moving along. We got 2 fights left. And like I said at the top of the show, we got light heavyweights ruling the co-main event and main event. First of which, obviously, the co-main event here, we got Ryan Spann taking on Iwan Cutelaba. In terms of odds, we got minus 220 on Cutelaba and plus 185 the return on Ryan Spann. Now, I believe this is going to be the second full training camp that we're going to see Iwan Cutelaba teamed up with Extreme Couture and most notably Eric Nixick. And it seems like he had, some solid work that he was able to show off in his last fight against Devin Clark. He gets him down in the first and second round, landing good shots from on top, controlling him. You could argue a possible 10-8 in one of those as well with the amount of damage that he was raining down. But he did a really good job in terms of not emptying his gas tank, right? He did that against Dustin Jacoby and paid for it. Hence why that fight went to a draw after he was able to put up a 10-8 in that first round. But I think that's one of the things that Nixick is trying to instill in him is the discipline, right? You got 15 minutes on the clock. Let's not fight like there's 5 minutes on the clock, and let's just try to utilize your total package. And one of the things that he has as his base is wrestling. He's a solid wrestler. And I feel like if he can use that effectively and, portion out his gas tank correctly, he could be a tough opponent for a lot of guys, because he may not be the most technical striker, but he still has enough power in his hands that he demands respect from his opponents. Now he's going to kind of be dwarfed in the cage here, obviously, right? Ryan Spann's a big guy at light heavyweight, but Ion Cutelaba is probably just as strong as, the strongest guys in this division. I do think his wrestling will be good enough to get this fight to the ground when he needs to. And then from there, he should be able to control Ryan Spann well enough. I'm not a big Ryan Spann guy, right? When you go into a split decision with Sam Alvey less than 2 years ago, that's a red flag for me. You know what I mean? Getting knocked out in, I believe, 2 of his last 3 fights, not a good look either. I think Cutelaba could potentially find the chin and put him out here. But if he stays to the discipline that Eric Nixick is trying to instill in him, I could see him just grinding this fight out over 15 minutes, getting more octagon experience, getting more experience following a game plan. And I feel like doing that against a guy here in Ryan Spann, who I think, the vast majority of his success is pretty much based on his size and his knockout power. If that doesn't come through for him here, I think he's going to be pretty much grinded out for the majority of this fight. You can almost compare it to the Devin Clark fight for Ryan Spann, but I just think that Iwan just demands way more respect with the striking, and I do think he might be the better wrestler than Devin Clark, right? He showed it off in the last fight. He was out wrestling him in that fight. So minus 220, in my opinion, is still a little bit high, because we still got to see if Iwan is truly this new and rejuvenated fighter. He's only 28 years old, so by all means, he could go out there and absolutely change his game around. And to have a commander like Nixick helping him out, I do think that we see better versions of him more often than not. So I lean with Cutelaba here, and my tinfoil hat conspiracy is Cutelaba by decision plus 600. Cash last time, could potentially cash here if he's able to slow this fight down. That's a tough ask, but at plus 600, I don't mind taking a little bit of a shot there. But I do think that if we see what we saw from him last time, if he tries to replicate that here against Spann, more than likely he'll be successful, and more than likely he'll be able to get the decision victory. Sorry. So, yeah, give me Cutelaba decision. But again, it's a conspiracy hat type of thing here. Don't go out there and put lock of the night money on a plus 600 here. Take a little bit of a sprinkle. If it is truly a rejuvenated and new version of Cutelaba, I think he's going to be tough to deal with for a lot of guys, especially a guy in Ryan Spann, who I just don't think is that good. So give me Cutelaba by decision. What about yourself?
Yeah, I got Cutelaba. I don't know that I like the by decision side of things. I agree 100%. Since he's gone down to Las Vegas, he's spending some time American Top Team. He's spending some time MMA Factory in Paris, but he's working a lot on his cardio. And if you check out online prior to that last fight with Devin Clark, he looks shredded. Like, the guy's always in excellent shape, but he was always like a little thicker. Now you can see that he's doing like a lot of cardiovascular training, a lot of just like quick explosive movements over and over and over. And of course, he's fighting a much smarter game plan. All that stuff's going to be very beneficial to his game here, because conserve yourself, go out, get the takedown, make things happen. You mentioned the fact that Ryan Spann, 6'5", 79-inch reach. He's a big light heavyweight. Cutelaba, 6'1", probably could make middleweight as far as I'm concerned. Maybe there's going to be a size difference here. The two things going for us is, one, this is the Apex, so it's a small ass little cage, and these are two relatively big boys. We're calling the guy who's 6'1", 205 small, paints himself green like the goddamn Hulk, and freaks out at the weigh-ins. Like, this guy's small? Nah, he's a pretty big dude. And Spann's just monstrous, right? So there's going to be less space to have to chase this guy around, and for Spann, less opportunity to just stay to the outside and pick away all night. The other thing is that, of course, with wrestling, the shorter and stockier you are, the harder it's to take you down. These guys that are 6'5", they're all legs, man. You get under them, you're going to pick them up and you're going to toss them over. And that's been Spann's issue. You look at his losses, it's generally him losing on the ground. It's going to be a problem there, right? And of course, I think you would say Cutelaba might have cardio issues, but Spann has the same ones. His last 3 fights are all finished in the first round. The one prior is the Alvey fight, in which he completely gassed out, lost the third round, and damn near lost as a colossal favorite over smiling Sam Alvey of all people. Not great. And I say Cutelaba is still young. He's still getting way better. Now, you talked about his primary base as being wrestling. Like, his primary base is grappling in every nature of it. I mean, you check out his little bio, right? He starts off as a kid in Greco-Roman wrestling. He then switches over to Sambo and Judo. He's a national champion in Moldova in Sambo, a national champion in Moldova in Judo, and he's the 2012 European Combat Sambo World Champion, or the European Sambo Champion at 90 kgs, right? So, yeah, man, grappling is his nature. Judo or Greco-Roman, Sambo. He gets a hold of you, he's going to toss you on the ground. Thing is, he's so goddamn wild. He's so goddamn reckless. Now that he's honing that in, you're going to see a much better version of himself. 9 takedowns over Justin Jacoby. I think 8 against Devin Clark. Might be the other way around. Yeah, I'm sorry, 9 against Jacoby, 8 against Devin Clark. Like, he's going to wrestling heavy game plans, and those guys are a little bit more durable. I don't think Spann is just going to lie on his back for 15 minutes. I think he's going to get exhausted. He's going to get tired of getting taken down. He's going to get tired of trying to work his way back up. And eventually the finish will materialize itself. And by the way, Devin Clark is a 2-time junior college All-American and a former national champion, junior college national champion, NJCAA. So the guy's well ahead of the wrestling game. He's a very good wrestler, very good wrestler. Best in the division? Of course not. But a very adequate wrestler. He was taken down 8 times by this crazy Moldovan Sambo practitioner. And then keep in mind that Devin Clark now fights at heavyweight, where he actually won a fight. So, yeah, I think Cutelaba is just way too damn strong. I think he's going to toss Spann onto the ground. 15 minutes with this guy on top of you is going to be a long-ass time. Clark was able to do it. Sure. Jacoby was able to get a draw out of it. You know, okay, fine. I think this kid's just getting better and better, and Spann doesn't particularly seem all that comfortable off his back. So, yeah, we both got Cutelaba. We both like Cutelaba. You got the decision, which is huge plus money, understandable. I'm going to go with the inside of this side of things.
All right. I'm glad that we're at least on the same side there as well. And a quick question here from Papa Chuck saying, has there been any explanation why the Apex cage is smaller than the standard 30-footer? They normally did that for like just fight night cards, right? Even if it was in an arena, I believe. I think the main one was like the Pearl at the Palms, where they had to do the smaller cage. And I believe that was yeah, the same small cage that they're pretty much using right now. Did you ever hear of a reason as to why they actually do that? Like, I just think they just do it. Right? Is it based on space or specs and all that shit? Like, I've never really heard an actual reason why they use different cages. It's like playing basketball on a different, smaller court, essentially. Why change the playing field? Have you ever heard anything about this?
No, of course, yeah. They used to do like those Hard Rock shows back in the day, so they need a smaller cage because you couldn't fit it in the venue. So then that became the norm. Then they had the larger cages, and I think they did. You know, I don't know if they did like an in-depth study, but it seemed to be that the smaller cage generally had more finishes and was led to, you know, a little bit more action-packed. So I think they would use a small cage for stuff like the Apex, small cage for fight nights, because they're little fight night cards and you just want as much action as possible. Now, when you do a big venue, a big arena, you have a pay-per-view, you're going to a much larger, well, now you're going to use the larger cage. You've got better guys on the card. They prefer probably the larger cage. It's a larger venue. Aesthetically, as it being in the fans, the larger cage makes a lot more sense. And I think when you like anybody would fight in the large cage. Nobody would say, geez, I don't know, too big for me. But there's guys in the small cage, certain heavyweights I know have gone on record to be like, I won't do it. Matt Mitrione, he was very vocal, like, I'm way too big to fight in this, because he knew he was going to get taken down too. I can almost guarantee you, if you offered Conor McGregor a fight in the small cage, that he would turn it down. So I just feel like for their big arena shows, their pay-per-views, their marquee spots, they don't mind having the extra fighting surface. You got premier talent. In the lower stuff, I got Contender Series guy against 35-year-old age veteran who nobody's sure if he's shot yet or quite or not. Stick him in a small cage and let's find out, right? I think that's the reasoning behind it.
There you go. And I just got bombarded with a bunch of notifications here. A couple quick UFC announcements in terms of matchups. Jakar Close versus Carlos Diego Ferreira on July 30th, and Vicente Luque versus Jeff Neal in August. Sign me the fuck up. I think that's a great welterweight fight. So just some breaking news there for you guys in case anybody is interested in that. All right, let's get to the main event. But first and foremost, shout out to the 100 live viewers that we currently have. Appreciate you guys hanging with us on this Thursday afternoon. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe and show the All-Star that you guys appreciate us on their platform. And then also, if you guys are looking for another bookie to get some action down on, check out BetOnline, probably one of the best in this space in terms of our early odds, great props, and not to mention regional MMA as well. So if you have a little bit more of an itch you want to scratch other than the UFC or Bellator, BetOnline has you covered. 50% welcome bonus up to $1,000 as well. Link is in the description below. And also shout out to Cloudbet, which also has great props specifically for the show, so that me and Cody can kind of market them a little bit more for you guys. We'll get to it, as I think it's going to become a staple after we do our 3 best prop bets. I'm always going to ask Cody, 1, who he thinks the fight of the night is going to be, and 2, who he think is going to be the fastest finish on the card as well, which normally is going to be the 2 main props that we'll have for every single card. So Cody, keep that in the back of your mind before we get to the end of the show here. All right, main event time. Light heavyweights. Got to think that this could possibly have title implications as well, especially if Alexander Rakic is able to get the dub here. He's coming in as a favorite here. He's coming in at minus 190. Plus 165 is the return for the former champion, Jan Blachowicz. Blachowicz lost his title back in October to old man Glover Teixeira, probably one of the best moments as an MMA fan to experience, especially at Glover being, at the 40-year-old mark that he's currently at. Big win for him there to get it in that fashion as well. He made it look easy. He was able to get Blachowicz to the ground. He dealt with the Polish power as best as he could, got him to the ground, and eventually got that submission in the second round via rear naked choke. But up until that point, man, Blachowicz had really turned a corner, it seemed, especially after he was able to knock out Corey Anderson and eventually line himself up with the title shot where he disposed of Dominic Reyes in very brutal fashion after landing leg or body kick after body kick, just bruising up the body of Dominic Reyes. Then he eventually finds that Polish power and knocks out Reyes in that fight. Follows that up with a great performance against Israel Adesanya, beating Israel Adesanya in the striking game as well, something that's pretty much been overlooked now that whenever we go back and talk about that fight, because the ending of that fight was mostly just him dragging Israel to the ground and just grinding him out. I think that was a great performance from him, but it also goes to show why there's weight classes, right? Adesanya does very well when he's the much bigger guy in the cage. He can utilize his range a lot better, but he was not able to do that against Blachowicz, who pretty much, could touch him whenever he wanted to because of the range that they were at in that fight. Blachowicz has shown great things, but I do think that it was just is it really called a flash in the pan when you're able to put together like 4 or 5 straight wins? Like, he had a good portion of time there, right, where he got the title and he defended a couple times. But I do think that his time is coming to an end now. I believe he's cracking 40 at some point in this year. And we're on the flip side, you got the young upstart in Alexander Rakic, who only has that one flaw on his UFC record against Volkan Oezdemir, a fight that I thought he won myself as well. But he's showcasing all aspects of the MMA game. Even if you want to go back to his earlier portions of his UFC career, you see like a takedown heavy game with big ground and pound from on top, specifically that Justin Ledet fight. Then we see him with, highlight reel knockouts against guys like Devin Clark and Jimmy Manuwa. Then he goes out there and has, that abysmal fight against Anthony Smith where he doesn't even land any takedowns in that fight, but he does a good job in terms of getting Smith to the ground, whether it's kind of just reversing momentum in terms of Anthony Smith going for takedowns or even dropping him with a leg kick or something like that. He gets back on top, and I think he gets like 12 or 13 minutes of control time that night against Anthony Smith. And then he follows that up against Thiago Santos where he muzzles Thiago Santos, right? That fight mainly takes place in the striking, but the majority of it is Alexander Rakic using his feints, using the threat of him throwing his power shots to keep Thiago Santos on his back foot and, just telegraphing the majority of his shots. And then, we know Rakic has great striking, good top control, solid takedowns. I believe he only has a 25% takedown rate in the UFC. But when he does get that top position, he does very good work from on top. I think if he can do that here against Blachowicz, he can pretty much beat him that way. I know Blachowicz is a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, might be a black belt at this point in time, but I do think that Rakic can get him to the ground and grind him out from on top. This is a thick boy. Alexander Rakic is huge for this division, very thickly built and very strong as well. And I think that's why a lot of opponents are kind of scared and hesitant to let anything go against this guy because they're scared of what's going to be coming back at them. So I do like Rakic here. If this stays as a 25-minute kickboxing fight, if this stays as Rakic, trying to grind out Blachowicz on the ground, I think he hasn't beat pretty much everywhere in this fight. My only concern is this being Rakic's legitimate first 5-round fight that he's going to have. If you guys remember, the Anthony Smith fight was a main event, but it was on short notice, so they only had it as 3 rounds. So he only beat him in 3 rounds in that fight. This will be a legitimate 5-round fight. I expect it to go the distance. Rakic via decision at plus 175. Sign me the fuck up. But I think Rakic wins this fight. Hopefully in dominant fashion, though, right? That is what will likely secure him a title shot. Because if he goes out there and has another stinker like the Anthony Smith fight, the UFC is going to look over at Jamal Hill. The UFC is going to look over at Magomed Ankalaev and figure out what's going on with those guys before giving it to Rakic. But it's hard to deny Rakic, especially if he just beats the former title holder. So I'm going Rakic decision plus 175. Even the over is not a bad look in my opinion. If you do think that Blachowicz can make this competitive, over 4.5 currently sits at plus 100. But I'm expecting this to go the full 5 rounds. What about yourself, Cody?
Yeah, I want to go with Rakic, right? He's my Slavic brother. Got to always go with the Slavic fighters. Rakic, though, is not super impressive. It seems like there's a lot there. He could be a lot better than he is. He is a big boy. He is a clean striker, but there's not enough engagement there. And it just makes me a little bit worried about having any type of real solid investment. He seems to follow the John Kavanagh train of thought that feints will win you the fight. But you need a little more substance than that. And keep in mind that Thiago Santos fight, okay? He got outstruck by Thiago Santos to the tune of 49-36. He got outstruck in the first. He got outstruck in the third. The third's most notable because he got outstruck by Thiago Santos 23-7. He's gassed out in the third. Now he's going to fight a 5-round fight. He also got outstruck by Thiago Santos in that fight. We all agree Rakic won. Don't get me wrong. But to land 36 over the course of 15 minutes is way too low. Anthony Smith, you're on top of this guy, and his legs busted. And 44 over the course of 15 minutes, it's way too low. The Volkan Oezdemir fight was a little more high-paced. He lands 75. So his numbers are just way too low. He's not landing a whole lot. The wrestling and grappling is not there. Have you ever seen anybody take him down? Francimar Barroso took him down twice in his UFC debut. He seemed fine there, but he's not really had to take on any good grapplers. Jan is a black belt. If Jan was to fall on top of this guy or to complete a takedown and end up on top, can you confidently say that Rakic is any good off his back? I can't. I couldn't tell you if he's confidently good. Can you confidently say he can fight 5 rounds? No, because we've never seen it. In his last fight, which was over a year ago, he's tired in the third. The volume. Can you confidently say he's going to go out there and land 100 significant strikes? No, because he's just really low volume. So it's like, oh shit, man. What do I actually like about this guy? Wins over Francimar Barroso, cut. Justin Ledet, cut. Devin Clark, I wouldn't even call him a fringe contender. He's a non-contender. Jimmy Manua, cut. Volkan's a former title challenger. Anthony Smith is going to challenge for a title pretty soon. And Thiago is just not the Thiago of old. Part of me wonders if Rakic has just looked really good against guys that weren't into it anymore, or maybe a little bit underdeveloped. And as a result, he's a 2-1 favorite over the former champ. Like, I don't know that I agree with the price tag. But as I say all this, I'm a firm believer in, like, sometimes I got to go with the narrative. And as far as I'm concerned, the narrative on Jan Blachowicz is he's shot porn. That fight with Glover, he looked off from the second the bell rang to the second he tapped out, which was he taps out right before Glover gets that rear naked choke on. Like, his neck is done, dude. He's off. You rewatch that fight. In the first round, Glover puts him in a can opener, right? A neck crank from guard. And you never see the can opener anymore, right? Not since Mark Coleman did it way back in the day. But he uses it, and you see right away, Jan's in, like, a lot of pain. He opens up his guard. Glover doesn't pass, but he goes to the can opener twice. Then in the second round, Jan's just out of it. He looks awful standing. His movement's gone. The second the fight hits the ground, he's in a lot of discomfort. And then as soon as he touches that neck to grab that rear naked choke, he taps out. Everyone's calling him a quitter, but it was very, very obvious to anybody watching that, like, he's off and likely a neck injury. So I do a recap on Sunday morning, and I say, I wonder if Jan had a neck injury. I wonder if anything will come out of that. Nothing is said. Then they book him versus Alexander Rakic 6 weeks ago, and Jan Blachowicz pulls out of the fight with a neck injury. His neck was done. It was done then when he fought Glover. It was done 4 months later when they tried to book his next fight. And that's 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks ago. Neck hurts too much to fight. I don't know if you know anything about neck pain, dude, but it does not go away. It's there for life. And Justin Bruckman, that's our guy, right? BJJ black belt, judo black belt. I one time heard him say, serious face, serious straight face. He said, I would slam my dick in a car door to get my old neck back. Because it's fuck, dude. You have discomfort. You don't sleep quite as good. He's got pain. They're old. They've gone through the rigors of training. They got through the rigors of fighting. Justin Bruckman, of course, fought Georges St. Pierre back in the day for the TKO title. Lost the TKO title to Georges St. Pierre, passing of the torch, if you will. But it's like the wear and tear gets after you. Jan's 39 years old. He's had a tremendous career. Like you said, overachieved for a large majority of it. Got some solid wins over guys people didn't think he'd ever beat. Went from going 2-4 in 6 UFC fights to start off his career to winning a world title. All great stuff, man. Great story. Polish power. Really something you can get behind. But he looked shot against Glover. He looked injured. He did not look the same. And now I think about the pullout, rebook 6 weeks later. My concern here is that you could exploit Rakic on the ground, but if your neck's hurt, you're not going to get any of your takedowns. You could exploit his cardio, but if your neck's hurt, you're not really going to push a pace and grind on this guy. You might be able to exploit him a little bit in the striking if you need be, but I don't think he's going to go out there and throw the output. Keep in mind, Rakic got straight up dropped by Devin Clark. You remember that fight? Clark clips him, and Rakic just is out. And he comes back and knocks out Clark with a spinning back fist. Pretty crazy finish, but I don't think his chin's all that good. You find the money, you can hurt him. You take him down, you can exploit him. You get him in the 4th and 5th, he's there to be taken advantage of. Jan Blachowicz, prior to that Glover fight, is not a 2-1 underdog. It's post-Glover fight. There's only 2 fighters that are undefeated. John Jones technically, but the steroids. So there's only 2 fighters that are undefeated. Khabib Nurmagomedov and Father Time. Father Time does not lose. It catches up to everybody. Jan looked a little bit old his last time out, and it doesn't come back. So even though Rakic has a ton of faults, if he stays long, stays big, stays to the outside, feints, touches and goes, he probably wins. But it's the apex. It's a small cage. If Jan can grab a hold of him and make something happen, could be. I don't know. I'd be looking to hedge out of this thing if I had Rakic on my top ticket. Like, I think I'd let it ride unless we had PRP intact or big money intact. Like, it seems like Rakic probably beats him, right? But I'm not sold enough on him. And Jan, I'm bashing him more so on narrative, right? It's one thing to say, oh, he's got a regress skill set. It's one thing to say, oh, I think his body's banged up. But that's kind of how I'm looking at it, and that's how I'm going to solve this one. So yeah, sign me up with Alexander Rakic. Don't love it, but that's the pick.
I like it. And yeah, I'm glad that you banged on the neck narrative, because I do think that's very important, especially with him having to reschedule this fight, just a couple weeks later after dealing with that type of discomfort. You don't want to be dealing with that type of discomfort when you step inside the cage against a guy like Alexander Rakic. And I do quickly want to answer a question here from Raw Strife, I believe it was. Yeah, I did word this incorrectly. You said, did he say minus 257 if all 3 women's fights don't go to decision? How does that even make sense? You are correct. I worded that incorrectly. If one of those fights doesn't go to a decision, you cash the minus 257 is what I meant. Not all 3. But if all 3 do go to a decision, that's where you're getting, I believe, the plus 210 or plus 220 on the flip side. But if one of them doesn't go to a decision, that's when the no cash is. So there you guys go. All right. Let's get to the 3 best bets here, 3 best prop bets that we have, and then I'll ask you those other prop questions on the back end here, Cody. Let's just get these prop bets out of the way first and foremost. And I'll kick things off as I normally do. First and foremost, I'm going to go with Grant and Smolka under 2.5 at minus 185. I think one of these guys finds a finish. I do lean more so Grant finding that knockout early in this fight, but I'm not counting out a Smolka, submission at a certain point. On the flip, the next one, I got Jandiroba via sub plus 275. I do think she gets Angela Hill to the ground, and I think she eventually wraps up a neck or grabs an arm, probably in the 1st or 2nd round. I do agree with Cody's narrative, though, as this fight, if it starts to drag on longer, it gets to a decision spot, then Hill more than likely gets that nod, especially if this reaches the judges' scorecards. And then lastly, my tinfoil hat conspiracy, I'm going Cutelaba via decision at plus 600. If he goes out there, remains disciplined as he did in the Devin Clark fight, and the durability of Ryan Spann holds up here, I could see him grinding him out over 15 minutes, getting in that decision victory, and cashing 2 straight decision victories for him in a row. We'll see how that goes. Cody, you're up next, my man.
All right, I'm going to start off things with Maximov by decision, plus 115. You've seen the guy fight, man. He is looking for that 15-minute decision. Just grind. I think Petroski's going to get grinded on, get tired. I hope Petroski doesn't get so tired that he gets submitted late. But the plus 115 Maximov by decision, I like it. Moving on, we are going to juice it up a little bit here and go Andrea Lee by decision, plus 135. Manpreet and myself are on the same page. We think she's made a lot of advancements. Her grappling's improved. She's strong. She's physical. She's got the output. Arroyo, talented, but doesn't have the cardio to keep up. So I expect Lee to take over down the stretch, at least secure rounds 2 and 3, pick up decision, plus 135. And for anybody saying like, oh man, just, I've been burned by her before. She got burned by her neo-Nazi ex-husband with like a burnt cigarette. Like, think about the mental stress of living in a household with a piece of shit who manages your career and is your head coach. Since she's been gone from Donnie, who I believe was back in jail, since they've been like separated and she's been like with their new camp, you're seeing the benefits. And I think this is going to be a continuation of that. Plus 135 by decision, sign me up. Moving on, me and my old boy Manpreet got to go head to head on this one. I know he doesn't particularly agree. He's got the Grant Smolka under 2.5. I went with the Grant decision plus 250. Again, historically, 3 knockout wins in his career, has knocked out a couple guys, never in the first round. Generally, when they make a mishap, they slip up. Smolka could slip up. He hasn't fought a whole lot of power punchers, so maybe he's just another knockout loss waiting to happen. I'm hoping he's got that BJ Penn just scrap mentality, comes out, does the damn thing. If the fight ends up on the ground, he can, tie up Smolka, or he can tie up Grant, hopefully kill off a little bit of the clock, and then make it to the buzzer. Makes it to the buzzer, and Grant can secure that decision, plus 250. If you want to get jiggy with it, that Frank Camacho by submission at plus 1,000. And of course, if you're someone that likes to chase underdogs, you could, I don't know, maybe Jake Hadley loses and you can get his opponent for that plus 400. And then talking about the props that you had, that we were talking about earlier, just a lot of great props that they offer here. The one I like was
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, well, speaking of Nascimento, because him by decision straight up, that plus 400. I don't mind the Nascimento Hadley as fight of the night at plus 1,400. You look at this card and it's like Candelario, Taira. Taira just backpack him. That's not exciting. Chookagian versus Ribas. Does Chookagian ever want to fight of the night? Really don't see that happening. Jan versus Rakic. It doesn't scream super entertaining to me. Jan's not, again, been the most entertaining guy, although possible. Petroski, Maximov. Maximov ain't looking for no 50,000 bonus. Are you crazy? Leo Arroyo could be a real good fight. Torres, Camacho could be a great one round, right? One rounders don't usually win fight of the night. You need something a little more competitive. And I think with Nascimento, lots of output striking, lots of submission attempts on the ground. For Hadley, a little bit unproven. He's going to be trying to take him down. He's going to try to hold him down. He's going to have to get out of some bad spots. They both got good cardio. This thing figures to be competitive going into those later rounds. And everyone likes an upset. So if this kid can make a good account of himself, pull off the victory, I think he's live for also maybe get that fight of the night at plus 1,400 here over on Cloudbet. I like it.
Yeah, I don't mind that either. I was going to go with Smolka and Grant, which is only plus 450, which is the one most likely to get the fight of the night. I agree with them, man. I think that fight's going to be a barn burner, but I do think the back and forth grappling of Nascimento and Hadley at plus 1,400, that absolutely deserves a shot of potentially being fight of the night. Fastest finish on the entire card. What do you think?
You don't want to hear this one, but I think young Cutelaba at minus or plus 1,000. Spann's been finished twice in his last 3 fights. His last 3 fights all ended in the first round. He lost 2 of them, both in the first round. He's been knocked out in the first round. He's been submitted in the first round. And Ian Cutelaba paints himself green, shows up, and does the damn thing. He is a shit-eating wild man. Nick Sick, all of his coaching staff have done an excellent job of reeling it back. But I think Spann presents the perfect opportunity to go out there and use some energy. Jacoby's a little bit tougher, a little bit durable. You don't want to exhaust yourself. Devin Clark, he's got some good cardio. You don't want to exhaust yourself. Spann, I think it's time to unload the clip and go get yourself a finish. So fastest finish on the card, plus 1,000, Ian Cutelaba. Although my heart hopes it's Michael Johnson at plus 2,100 because it would be such a nice price tag. And, dude, he's got nuclear power. Like, if he hits you, he could most definitely get that knockout. It's that Did I mention that bit about Father Time? He catches up to everybody. Johnson doesn't quite look himself anymore.
There you guys go. So, like I said, fastest finish on the card, fight of the night bonus, fastest finish on the main card as well. They have all those bets that you guys can choose from, or all those props I said. And then also the Contender Series debutants between Torres, Hadley, and Candelario. You can choose 1, 2, 3, or none of them to win. And you guys can obviously see the odds there on the screen. Total takedowns as per UFC.com for all 11 bouts, over under of 24.5. So if you guys want to do the math, see how many wrestlers are on the card and how many takedowns will actually accumulate there, you guys can bet on it over or under there. And then obviously all 3 women's bouts go to decision. Yes is plus 210, but if there's one finish at all in any 3 of those fights and you hit no, you're getting paid out minus 257. So there you guys go. Shout out to Cloudbet once again, though, for being very receptive to the props that we're suggesting for them. I get on a call with them pretty much every week, like at the beginning of the week, to try to figure out a couple props that they can put up, and they're very responsive and they're pretty timely with putting them up as well. Like I know we came up with a couple props last week, Cody, that we wanted to see on there, and I kept forgetting. So I'm gonna get you to Twitter DM me the ones that you want to see on there that pertain to every single card, right? I think you said like which fighter bleeds first or something like that.
I love that one. Yeah,
right?
like first blood
like
match, baby.
Exactly. You get some WWF shit going on in this.
I like I like this prop that they got for the over-under on takedowns on the card, because they're like, who knows, right? But it's a little bit all over the place. But I think that there could be some value there. And just off quick math, like honestly, what's it set at? 24.5?
24.5.
Okay, Nick Maximov had 11 in his last fight all by itself, right? And they're both wrestlers for the record. Yeah. Taira is going to try to take Candelario down. That's a fact of life. Candelario might also take this kid down. Not a whole lot, but he's going to look for it. Verna, your girl, is 100% going to look to take the fight to the ground.
Let's
and probably
3 takedowns.
So. Yeah. Alan Patrick sticks to wrestling for almost the whole 15 minutes. Vivian Arroyo is going to look to try to exploit Andrea Lee's porous takedown defense. Jake Hadley is a takedown guy. Frank Camacho, God, I hope he takes him down and submits his ass. That's what I'm looking for. And that one might not have any takedowns. Ribas could try to take down Caitlin Chookagian. I just don't see it happening. I would think Davy Grant's going to get takedowns. I would think Ion Cutelaba is going to get takedowns. Jan might try to push the action. This card could have 35 takedowns, right? 24.5 seems pretty good. So, yeah, I take the over on that and hope for the best.
Yeah, well, we'll revisit it next week and see how many we end up with. But over 2.5 seems to be the play here for me and Cody. We'll see how it goes down. All right, Cody, on the back end here, anything you want to say on the back end, and I'll wrap this thing up?
No, that's about it. I definitely, let's play it by ear for that prop this week, because sometimes, like you mentioned with Rakic, it's like, well, how does he end up on Anthony Smith for so long and never get a takedown? There's certain spots where it's like, wow, whoa, I got 3 takedowns. It's only marked as 2. So if you end up getting 23.5 or 23 or instead of the 24, like, you're going to be upset about it. But I like that they're working with new props, and I think I think that these are guys that are wanting to work with the game, people in the game, right? They want to do cool props. They want to release more stuff. They're doing all the regional MMA stuff, so it's not just UFC and Bellator and PFL. Like, you can get lines on anything. They're sponsoring our show. Like, you know, we're with a good group of people. I think they're putting their best foot forward, and I'm excited to help them grow. So yeah, excited as always. Again, we do have a Bellator. We do have all that jazz coming up. So another weekend chock full of MMA, and of course, I still got to make my own cards. So the grind never stops. But yeah. Thanks for talking fights with me. Always a pleasure, my friend.
Absolutely. We are hitting the 2-hour mark of this 11-fight card, but that's how much me and Cody love to talk about the fights and MMA in general. I had some people hit me up about getting Cody to do some Bellator breakdowns or anything like that. Are you going to be doing breaking down the bees this week for them or no?
Yeah, well, I'm 100% going to be tweeting some stuff out. The breaking down the bees, the only thing is the card's in the UK and it's Friday, correct?
Yeah.
So, you know, today's Thursday. It's 5 o'clock. By the time I record, get it out tonight, it's done in the morning. If I waited to do it in the morning, it's really dead in the water. So I think I'd rather just put the extra time into tape studying the card and make sure I don't fall on some trap line of some kind. Because with these European cards, like there's a whole bunch of trap lines that you could potentially fall in self. But yeah, I mean, what I was looking at, this is not the exact order, eh? Okay, it doesn't.
Well, what I was going to say, without putting you on the hot spot here right now, is saying just follow him on Twitter. He's going to tweet him out as soon as he gets his tape study done before he goes through everything like that. And that's where you guys can find most of his Bellator stuff. So quit hounding me to get him to talk about Bellator on the show, as we already spent so much time on the UFC. Just hit him on his Twitter DMs or his timeline, and he'll definitely be able to get it out to you guys as soon as possible.
Hells yeah, dude. This doesn't even look like a bad card at all, but I just want to make sure I got the right leans because, of course, the Daniel Weichel is an apple pie shitter and minus 165. It looks good. Looks good. Probably not good. Probably not good. So, yeah, we're going to make sure we got the exact ones, but 100% so that you don't miss the line. Logan Storley at minus 325. How does he lose this fight? Flying into the face? Yeah. Well, what about outside of that? No world exists where he's not going to get his takedowns. So what do you think is going to happen once he gets the takedowns? Like 325, I'm in on that, my friend. But there's a couple other guys here that I actually like too. So I'll tweet it out. I'm going to hopefully maybe study tonight. And then if I can squeeze a show out, 100%. If not, I'll make sure to get the picks out bright and early so we can hopefully not get our pie shit on.
There you guys go. All right. Appreciate all the love and support. You guys are awesome. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe on the way out. Let the All-Star folks know that you guys appreciate us on their channel by just commenting below as well. Even if you just say, let's fucking go, that's more than enough for us. As long as you guys drop a comment, that'll be very, very helpful. All right. Good luck on all your bets this weekend. And we'll catch you again next weekend, I believe, for the last event in this consecutive run for the UFC. What is the card next week? Sorry, let me just quickly pull that up. Do you recall off the top of your head, Cody? Top of your head, next week, what do we end this stretch with? We're gonna go with
is it the last
Alexander Volkov and Jairzinho Rosenstrike headlines next week's card, and then we got a weekend off. Then we're back at it for the June 4th card, which I believe is it next week? What am I doing here? UFC events, upcoming cards. Oh, sorry. Next week is Holm versus Vieira. Next week is Holm versus Vieira, the barn burner of a fight there. But then, yeah, we have a week off. Then it's June 4th, Volkov, Rosenstrike, and then 275 after that. So there is a week off at the ending of May. You guys won't get us that week, but make sure you guys join us next week so you guys don't, go too long without us. Appreciate you guys as always. Good luck on your bets this weekend, and we'll see you guys next week. Peace out.